Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, August 21st, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America. Downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Donald Trump is going bat crap crazy, and it's funny and not funny. Trump cancels his Danish trip because they won't sell him Greenland. Says Jews are disloyal and that he's king of the said Jews. Also wants to put nukes in space. Meanwhile, back down to earth, Trump's team is telling major Republican donors there's going to be a slight and short recession maybe coming, but we'll cut more taxes if that makes you feel better. U.S. government will not provide flu shots to migrants held in their concentration camps and are about to break the Flores Agreement so as to hold children in those camps indefinitely. Meanwhile, a suspicious major uptick in Brazilian forest fires under Bolsonaro. And so much for tariffs. U.S. Steel lays off 200 in the wake of an economic slowdown. And I have some bad news for you about the guy in charge of our nuclear weapons. Also, unpaid Kentucky coal miners still blocking that $1 million coal train. 13 U.S. congressmen demand answers about U.S. involvement in the Brazilian Lava Jato political hit job. Meanwhile, as Bernie Sanders unveils a massive labor empowerment plan. And we'll have some updates on the USDA move, the Volcker rule, and a report that says government scientists saw the opioid epidemic coming in 2006. Apparently, no one in the Bush administration cared. All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. What an auspicious start to the beginning of my own personal vacation. The program will not be on vacation, at least in terms of live, until Monday of next week, wherein we will have a week's worth of great, if I do say so myself, interviews that are all brand new. And Brendan has picked a bunch of stuff from our deep archive for the from the deep archive of Majority Report vaults for members. You can be one of those members by going to jointhemajorityreport.com and checking out. So the plan was for today was I was going to take a lot more phone calls during the free half of the show. We were just going to do a little bit of news. And then we just got this sort of onslaught of the president who seemingly, I mean, the only thing I can imagine with what's going on here at this point is that he is worried about his Christian fundamentalist base. I mean, assuming that he hasn't just completely lost his mind which is, it's a big assumption at this point.
They changed their mind on Greenland.
It's always in play.
But I've got to think that there is, at least, as bizarre it is, some broad sort of even tactical response here to something that they must know internally in terms of a problem. If you look at the polls over the past couple of days, he is bleeding support from his base. Never mind college-educated men and women, which have deserted the Republican Party in broad strokes. Non-college educated women are deserting him significantly right now. White women. I hope that goes without saying, because it's only white people broadly speaking, who vote for Republicans. I mean, that's just a statistical fact.
Whitey.
And there's even
I didn't start anything with the wife.
There's even some, so he's bleeding support, and I got to believe that what I've just told you is public from Fox News poll. I got to believe that there's internal polling that suggests that he's losing some of his evangelical base. And that's what this is the only thing I can imagine what that's about. Because what I'm about to present to you in a 2 or 3 act play here, little novelette, is it's nuts. I just don't know who he thinks he's getting with this at this point. If it's not trying to shore up the evangelical base, which really, obviously they are dyed-in-the-wool Republican voters, so they want a justification for not liking brown people, other than just sort of the blatant, like, you shouldn't like brown people. But he also is trying to activate their their love of Israel, and it gets more religious as we go on. Here is Donald Trump talking about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and then getting on the Jews a little bit for not being with the program.
To let them in, including the 4. I'm talking about all 4, but these 2 that wanted to get in, Omar and Tlaib. And I think it would be a very bad thing for Israel, but Israel has to do what they want to do. But I would not cut off aid to Israel. And I can't even believe that we're having this conversation. 5 years ago, the concept of even talking about this, even 3 years ago, of cutting off aid to Israel because of 2 people that hate Israel and hate Jewish people. I can't believe we're even having this conversation. Where has the Democratic Party gone? Where have they gone where they're defending these 2 people over the state of Israel? And I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty. All right? Thank you very much, everybody.
Now, a lot of people have taken this a lot of different ways. Some people have said, wow, he's saying that Jews are disloyal to America. And here is Rudy Giuliani clarifying for those who... Rudy Giuliani says Trump accuses Jewish Democrats of great disloyalty, the New York Times. This is routine for the New York Times and J Street, but really disappointed a representative of the Anti-Defamation League would feign confusion about Donald Trump's statement. Because they're all saying, maybe in this, I didn't read the Times specifically right up, but what they're, they're all saying that this is an old anti-Semitic trope. They're accusing Jews of disloyalty but here's Giuliani clarifying. POTUS, that's the president of the United States, is referring to disloyalty to Israel. You see, what the president is saying is that Jews, we all know, have a loyalty to America, but they also are supposed to have a loyalty to Israel.
It's both countries.
In other words, there's another way you can say it. You say, like, Jews, as you know, have a dual loyalty. In other words,
they're wandering people. They don't got no loyalty to America. So it's Israel too. He's talking about both.
They have a dual
It's a smear.
Well, they're supposed to anyway.
Right, they're supposed to. And so this is like, him basically saying like, you know, Jews are supposed to be cheap, and some of these Jews aren't even cheap.
Let me put it this way. Let me give you a friggin' comparison. What if there was a law that that Rashida whatever came out? She said, "Oh, incidentally, I hate the Jews, so not only do I oppose Israel, but I want to get rid of all money lending operations in the country." And if a Jew were to support that, would that be very supportive of his own people? You answer me that.
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that.
So in other words, a Jew
himself
himself would vote against money lending operations. So what the president is saying is that you, as a Jew, if you were to vote against, say, exorbitant credit card interest as an example, you would either be stupid or disloyal. How much more simple can this get?
So there's Donald Trump, I guess, trying to, I don't know what he's trying to do there, but he accidentally...
I'm trying to start the Jexodus.
Exactly.
He's trying to neg us into starting the Jexodus.
There you go. So, and let's be clear, to whatever country he's saying Jews are being disloyal to, he's talking to 80% of the Jews in this country. And
probably there's other countries where that kind of message coming from the president of the United States is a bit worrying.
Wait a second. Now, 80% of you opposes Shylock now?
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of loyalty is that? I thought the Jews were supposed to be smart.
Right, exactly.
At the very least.
Supposed to be good with money.
Supposed to know how to work the numbers.
So there's Rudy Giuliani clarifying things for us.
Oh, boy. More clarity.
So completely unrelated to the story of Donald Trump saying that Jews have dual loyalty, and when they don't, it's a failure on their part. What network is this? This Newsmax TV invites on, this is
his
regular show there. So in the wake of this, Wayne Allyn Root goes on to his Newsmax TV show. Now, Wayne Allyn Root, if you're not familiar with him, is a Fox News. I don't know if he's a paid contributor, but he goes on there quite a bit. He's the one who broke the story about Barack Obama being a gay Muslim. He is also the one who broke the story about Heather Heyer's killer being paid by George Soros. He also broke the story. I'm trying to think what else. What other stories did he break? I can't remember exactly what other stories he broke here, but nevertheless, he broke a lot of these top stories, as you can imagine.
I think we should save it, but he had some very interesting insight about the Mueller investigation.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think we have audio of that. Yes. In fact, let's play some of the audio of the Mueller investigation thing, just so I give you a sense of who Wayne Allyn Root is in terms of like being this is from Right Wing Watch. Of course, our friends over there. I think it's Jared Holt, right? Is that it? And here's Wayne Allyn Root. He's going to lead in on the Mueller investigation.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and Robert Mueller is from Uranus. That's the planet he must be from. This guy, in my opinion, I'm going to say it right on national TV, it's penis envy. That's what it is. This guy is jealous. It's like going back to high school. There were guys that were nerds.
I mean, I don't think Robert Mueller is cognizant enough to be jealous of Trump's
the stuff
penis.
about Heather
does seem like he has big dick energy. I'm just gonna say
the Heather Heyer stuff.
Can you repeat that?
The Heather Heyer stuff is more offensive, I think, obviously by far.
It's just stupid.
And
but that was funny.
the gay Muslim stuff. So this is Wayne Allyn Root, and this is what he had to say. Now, here he is, and I should just tell you, for those of you who are not watching, the crawl on the Chiron says John Voight slams. Who does he slam? Just let it go a little bit further. Slams the radical left, and just that's breaking news. That's breaking.
Praise Trump. Yeah. Oh, what are we, Marianne now?
Praises Trump as a man of truth and love. So that's breaking news. So they got to play that across the thing. And so here he is. You can call John Wayne Allyn Root if you want, or Wayne Allyn Root if you want. All you got to do is dial 833 War Talk. And here he is. Here he is in the wake of Donald Trump's comments yesterday.
Don't forget, I don't know if you haven't watched the show, I happen to be Jewish by birth, and 75% of all Jews vote Democrat, and they don't like Trump. And this is the greatest president for Jews and for Israel in the history of the world, not just America. Trump's the best president for Israel in the history of the world, and the Jewish people love him like he is the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God. And in America, American Jews don't like him. They don't even know what they're doing or saying anymore. It makes no sense. But that's okay. He keeps doing what he's doing. He's good for all of us. Good for Jews, good for blacks, good for gays. He's good for everyone in America who wants a job. Barney, thank you.
Okay. Now, I should just tell you, I don't want to get too pedantic here. I was a religious studies, I think co-major, or I can't remember. But I did study that in school. In terms of the Jews, we don't believe in a second coming. We don't actually even believe in a first coming. We don't believe in a Messiah as a godlike figure. I mean, you can be a Messiah. It just means you're like a really smart dude, essentially, or, you know, that you just come in and maybe you...
There's that word again.
Right. Smart. And... but not, I mean, I guess presumably you'd have to be Jewish, but I'm not even sure about that.
And do we have a king or a pope?
Well, there was a time back in the day where the Hebrews did have kings, but not really so much anymore. Now,
hey, Bathsheba, I'm going to send your husband out.
Why would we spend time at the beginning of the show on some lunatic, Wayne Allyn Root, who is a total lunatic, who exists on the margins of society, who is clearly bat crap crazy. Maybe he's just a grifter, whatever. They have him on Fox News to promote this stuff. And, you know, who watches WorldNet Daily except for absolute right-wing nut jobs?
Actually, really, right? Primarily
Newsmax,
us.
Right? Well, there's one other, there apparently is one other viewer.
Oh, yeah.
And he quote tweeted Wayne Allyn Root. In fact, he wrote, "Thank you to Wayne Allyn Root for the very nice words. Quote, President Trump is the greatest president for the Jews and for Israel in the history of the world. Not just America. He's the best president for Israel in the history of the world, ... And the Jewish people in Israel love him. He's like the king of Israel. They love him like the second coming of God. But American Jews don't know him or like him. They don't even know what they're doing or saying anymore. It makes no sense. That's okay. If he keeps doing what he's doing, he's good for all Jews, blacks, gays, everyone. And importantly, he's good for everyone in America who wants a job."
Wait, is the second coming of God a thing?
Oh, no. Wow.
Wow. Now, the wow is his comment. And of course, this is from the President of the United States, has either instructed someone to transcribe, ordered the transcription.
I typed that out.
I mean, someone probably helped him do this, but the President of the United States is not just retweeting. He is literally, over the course of 3 tweets, quote tweeting this absolute lunatic.
Look at what Brother Zion 1 said on YouTube. Anybody who hates Obama is a white devil with a corroded, incest-ridden brain. Anybody who wants a job, devils, blacks, African, Asiatic men, love Obama. Wow.
No, that's all right. I'll transcribe it myself, Stephen. I love the quote that much.
This has to be... This has to be a function of them feeling like their evangelical support is caving. It's the only thing I can imagine. I mean, or just...
I mean, that is a real miracle, though, right?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
So here's Bernie Sanders, who weighed in as to the incredible disloyalty that Jews are displaying by not supporting Donald Trump and voting for Democrats. Bernie Sanders, as you may know, a bit Jewish himself.
That if you are Jewish, I gather, to be a loyal American, you got to vote for Donald Trump and Republicans. Well, let me say this to the president. I am a proud Jewish person. And I have no concerns about voting Democratic. And in fact, I intend to vote for a Jewish man to become the next president of the United States.
Holla.
There you go.
That's so awesome.
Now, again, according to Rudy Giuliani, Bernie Sanders was wrong. It was not about loyalty to America. It was about Jews failing to live up to their expected dual loyalty that they have for both Israel and for America, and are not placing Israel properly enough in the decision-making matrix when they vote in terms of, supporting the right-wing Israeli government. So, nice statement, Bernie, but wrong. Sorry. So,
look, Brother Sadat X, Asiatic African 1. Anyone who hates Obama must be grafted by a pig. Everybody who loves him are those who want jobs, no matter devil or full human. Wow.
There you go.
I'm really failing on my quadruple loyalty to Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Germany.
I've noticed that, actually.
Where are you at with that?
That comes across quite a bit.
You don't even push for Germany or Czechoslovakia stories in the chat.
So back on the Donald Trump has gone bat crap crazy over the past 24 hours. Now, I can come up with look, there's two answers to all of this, right? He's completely crazy. Because I can understand why he's attacking Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, because bigotry against people of color, bigotry against women, bigotry against Muslims, that is an actual currency within the Republican Party. That is not to say that that doesn't exist outside the Republican Party, but within the context of the Republican Party, it is the primary motivating factor upon which Republicans vote. That's just undeniable. The statistics are there. It used to be, including homophobia. Up until, 2004 was the last major presidential election where a hatred of gay people and a disdain for the idea that there could be marriage equality drove people. But now the Republicans are just relying on race and on anti-Muslim bigotry, and
transphobia is in play as well.
Transphobia is in play. That's true. It doesn't, Donald Trump is not, he's just actually, he doesn't get rhetorical as much about it as probably would satisfy them, but he's certainly done plenty to hurt their protections and, in terms of the military and whatnot. But yes, I would say transphobia. Those four things cover easily 80% of the Republican voting base in terms of you want to motivate them out. I mean, I think that's, I think there's, it's not hard to find the statistics on that.
Abortion would be in there too.
Abortion's in there as well.
Rich people.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think that that doesn't necessarily motivate them to vote in the same way. I mean, if you look at times where there's been depressed Republican turnout, the thing that really motivates them. And so I understand why he's attacking Tlaib and Omar. I think I can come up with a plausible explanation as to why he would say this about Jews, because he wants to make it about Israel and he wants to motivate evangelicals. That may be wrong. It may be just crazy.
He takes their voting personally, too.
Right. But this, in a million years, I can never understand. As you know, I don't even know if we covered it because it was so silly. Donald Trump supposedly was asking his advisors about buying Greenland.
We covered it in the context of Kudlow.
Right. Okay. But it was just like a side story. Donald Trump tweeted out this last night. Denmark is a very special country with incredible people, but based on Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen's comments that she would have no interest in discussing the purchase of Greenland, I will be postponing our meeting scheduled in 2 weeks for another time. The Prime Minister was able to save a great deal of expense and effort for both the United States and Denmark by being so direct. I thank her for that and look forward to rescheduling sometime in the future. He is trying to punish the Prime Minister of Denmark for deigning to take his desire to buy Greenland seriously and then saying, yeah, not for sale.
That's how you make a deal.
I guess he thinks there is a constituency in the United States that is saying, like,
the Greenlanders
want to see him tough with the Prime Minister of Denmark. I mean, this is just bat crap crazy. Unless he's just like didn't want to go or something, or was having a bad hair week or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not being facetious. It's almost inexplicable.
I read it as he just doesn't want to go and is looking for an excuse.
That's what it could be.
Sell us French Antigua.
Here's
now
the Danish Prime Minister if you want to see her response.
Yeah, here's her response to this. Now, isn't she like anti-immigrant a little bit?
Yeah, I think she's
extremely so.
Yeah, and so you would think natural allies, but I want Greenland.
It is with regret and surprise that I received the news that President Trump has cancelled his state visit to Denmark on the 2nd and 3rd September. I had been looking forward to the visit. Our preparations were well underway. It was an opportunity, I think, to celebrate Denmark's close relationship to U.S. and who remains one of Denmark's closest allies. I was looking forward to having a dialogue on the many shared interests Denmark has with the U.S. Furthermore, the developments in the Arctic region call for further cooperation between the U.S. and Greenland, Faroe Islands and Denmark. And therefore, I would like to underline our invitation for stronger cooperation on Arctic affairs still stands.
What a bad accent.
I was just going to say, there's no honor among fascistic bigots. That's the problem. It's just, that's the thing, is that there used to be a time back in the old days where you would stick together. You wouldn't do this over a piece of land. You would never do that over a piece of land. Just
You're surprised.
Stunning.
I'm surprised.
I would also add to the array of bat crap crazy things coming out of the White House today, before we get on to the also horrific things coming out of the White House today, that on Tuesday, yesterday, in addition to saying that Jews have dual loyalty and are failing at it, in addition to canceling a visit to Denmark because they won't sell us Greenland, President Trump signed a presidential memorandum outlining new procedures to launch nuclear power systems into outer space. Now, it's a great week to do this because we just had this wonderful story this week of evidence that Russia may be trying to cover up a tragic nuclear accident after a blast on August 8th killed at least 7 people at a naval weapons site. There was fallout that was found quite some distance. That's how people know about it. So why do I bring that up? As Trump directs the Department of Transportation to issue public guidelines within a year for commercial companies seeking a license to launch spacecraft with nuclear systems into space. I am pointing upwards because that's where it will be.
Let the free market decide.
And I imagine that this memorandum, which gives NASA 180 days to create an interagency nuclear safety review board, 180 days, that's plenty of time to do that, to ensure the safety of launching radioisotope power systems, fission reactors used for power and propulsion, and more up into the sky. And I am sure the benefits of this will rain upon us for years and years and years to come.
Competition would start kicking in.
I just
might have even been to keep the testosterone flowing as well.
I'm feeling pretty good about going on vacation. Let's also just get to this horror, because I wanted to use today to talk about some proposals that some Democrats have floated. But let me just start with this before we get on to, because I had said the other day that Democrats had no real immigration plans on the table, and both Julian Castro and Elizabeth Warren have pretty vigorous plans. Much of Warren's was borrowed from Castro, I mean, according to her, but nevertheless, they've signed on to those. But before we get to that, two stories about our concentration camp plans and programs. The Customs Border Patrol will not provide flu shots for immigrants who are being detained in our concentration camps. At least 3 children have died in these detention facilities over the past year from complications arising from the flu. It is the first time in 10 years that any immigrants who we have been detaining have died in our custody. There were more that have died, but 3 were specifically in part from the flu. And we are not providing them flu shots because supposedly we don't hold them long enough, which of course is absurd. I don't know how, I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. It's inhumane. I don't know what else to say about it, except for the idea that we are holding them only for short periods of time. The Trump administration wants to deal away with that. As it stands now, when we detain immigrants, and this has changed somewhat over the past 3 years, it used to be we would not separate children from their parents unless the parents were shown to have committed a serious crime in the crossing of the border, i.e., they had drugs, they were abusing the family, some other violent crime. And then kids would be separated from the parent, because that's what we do even in this country as well. The Trump administration then changed their policy, and instead of issuing civil violations coming across the border without papers, which is the way that it had been exercised basically for decades, they considered it a criminal charge, and therefore, based on that, separated children from their parents. There has been an agreement since 1997 called the Flores Settlement Agreement that was based upon a wide-scale lawsuit, a class action suit that was brought against the U.S. government on behalf of migrant children. Under the auspices of that agreement, the federal government is not allowed to hold children more than 20 days. They must be licensed care programs. There are specific requirements in terms of hygiene and access to sanitary facilities and medical treatment and contact with family members under this agreement. Well, the Trump administration has decided we are no longer going to follow that. We're no longer going to follow that agreement. Now, there's going to be lawsuits, and supposedly they're going to go in front of a federal judge before this new regulation, essentially, that they're doing, this new edict, it goes into effect. They'll find a judge who Trump has appointed, and they will get an okay on this. I'm quite convinced of it. They will pick the judge. They will make sure that the judge signs off, and then we'll see court cases. It's just horrific. And it's horrific. They are doubling down on everything.
It's totally horrific. And this is how concentration camps turn into death camps. Like Raices, Texas.
Starts with neglect. Exactly.
Raices, Texas tweeted, the U.S. death rate in children from the flu is about 1 in 600,000. So far, 3 children have died out of 200,000 people held at detention facilities along the border. So already the death rate is 9 times the normal death rate from the flu. And as someone else pointed out, Anne Frank didn't die in the gas chambers. Anne Frank died of typhus in overcrowded conditions. So this is a terrifying and intentional way to start killing people.
Yeah, check out the 3 Arrows video, How Societies Turn Cruel, for more on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And this is part of the program. It's just one more element to make these concentration camps miserable, ostensibly, to either A, scare immigrants from trying to come to America, or B, allow their base to justify in their minds that the parents are subjecting them to this. It really is disgusting. It really is disgusting. We're going to have to push that ad. I don't want to do this ad now. So let's talk a little bit about 2 of the more robust immigration plans that we have out there. Now, look, somebody on Twitter was complaining that we haven't done enough coverage of Julian Castro. And, there are 20 candidates. He's not polling at even 2%. I think his immigration plan is good. It seems to be the most aggressive of all of them on some level. Elizabeth Warren has adopted a bunch of it. Quickly, in terms of Castro's plan, in addition to him having calling for what he calls a Marshall Plan for Central and parts of Latin America, which
I wouldn't trust his version of that. Frankly.
Well,
seriously,
that's my other reservations
huge
with a guy like that.
Marks.
But the idea of it floating around is good. It can always be problematic when it's in. But the idea is to try and rebuild the institutions of these countries since we have interfered in their development and have made these countries, in many instances, extremely dangerous for people, which is why, and untenable for people, is why they migrate here. He calls for the government to get out of the business of routine immigration enforcement. Immigration and Customs Enforcement would retain its investigations unit, but enforcement and removal would see its functions split over different agencies and would prioritize individuals with serious criminal convictions and threats to national security, multiple reentries with a criminal history. Customs and Border Protection would be steered away from routine immigration enforcement within the United States. DHS would stop signing agreements with local law enforcement agencies. Immigration detention could only be used in the most serious cases. It would end the use of private prisons. Immigration courts would be removed from the Attorney General's authority. So you can't get stuff like Jeff Sessions saying you're no longer going to consider domestic abuse or threats from gang violence to be legitimate causes for asylum. Those are the big points on Julian Castro's immigration plan. Warren adopts a lot of that, particularly the 1325 thing that Castro brought up in one of the debates, That is the 1325 Title 8 is the law that's been on the books that says it is a crime to cross into the country without documents. Before the Trump administration, every administration prior to that, to my knowledge, at least for the last 20, 30 years, had been interpreting that and basically doing prosecutorial discretion and saying that it, instead of it being a criminal violation, it was a civil violation, sort of like a speeding ticket. And if you got a speeding ticket, you can't separate the children, can't kidnap them. You don't put these people in prison. So you got a court hearing. Go and come back. And that system is what worked. Well, one of the things that Castro and Warren would do would be to reverse that executive order and get rid of that statute so that it cannot be interpreted in the way that the Trump administration is doing. Warren's pledging to admit 6 to 8 times as many refugees as Trump has, although that number is dwindling. I don't know what the base number is on that. That number is dwindling significantly. She would implement proposals that would make it easier for asylum seekers to get their day in court. They would, of course, expand Dreamers and temporary protected status for folks. She would reverse the 1325. She would also get rid of government contracts for private detention facilities as well, cut down on the use of detention for migrants awaiting their day in court altogether. Proposes making immigration courts independent, like Castro and O'Rourke. Calls for reinstating DACA. Pledges to admit 125,000 refugees in her first year as president, 175 per year at the end of her first term. Reverses Trump's restrictions on those seeking asylum to include victims of gang violence and domestic abuse. End the Remain in Mexico policy, which the administration has used to require asylum seekers to wait on the other side of the border. More support for legal immigration, including redistributing unused visas to address the millions currently in the backlog waiting for a way to enter the U.S. Lower the barriers to naturalization, and so forth. I mean, I think Castro's is probably a little bit more aggressive in terms of not just decriminalizing, but allowing more folks in. But there needs to be, I think, still a set of policies that are more clearly can be espoused frankly, in a bumper sticker on some level. I think open borders scares people. Frankly, the vast majority of Americans, I think, would recoil at that. But there can be sort of broader principles, like we're going to give everyone who wants citizenship a path to citizenship. We're going to give everyone who is seeking asylum based on certain criteria rights to asylum. That I think, broadly speaking, you could say everyone who comes in with, a non-criminal record, or at least some mitigation of that, or maybe have served time, or there's no open warrants for people, or something to that effect. There's got to be a way of doing it where you can say, we're going to have control over our borders, but we're still going to let people in. We're going to do so in a controlled and orderly fashion. But we're going to let people in because immigrants add to our society. And that's that.
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with you about the term open borders. I mean, within the left, it means something very different, I think, than what most people understand it to mean. It means mostly it's an umbrella term for what you just said. Decriminalization of migration, a path to citizenship, all the things that most of us agree are good. I would ask people to focus more on the idea of the free movement of people rather than open borders, because it's too easy to conflate open borders or free movement of people with the unfettered free movement of capital, which is not the left's project. That is a neoliberal project.
Yeah, and I think I think these proposals go a decent way towards some of this, anyways. And so I had, said that there was really no proposals out there that were significant, I guess, last week, and so wanted to address that.
And that's it. No more Julian Castro. Sorry, sir.
That's probably it.
It's not happening
That's
anymore.
probably it.
And his record at HUD is terrible.
That's probably it.
Really not good. Very bad and very bad for you.
But I appreciate. I mean, on
it's
some
good
level,
proposal.
look, this is the point of this stuff. And let me just, while I'm at it, I'll talk about Bernie's labor proposal, because, if Julian Castro's contribution to the to this race is that Elizabeth Warren adopts a bunch of his proposals and gets it more into the mix, forces other candidates to adopt similar proposals, that's great.
Like the Bernie role from
exactly where I was going. Like, not to bring up the dumbass horse whisperer again, but whoever that anonymous guy who turns out to be a corporate PR guy. Now, maybe he's not, because I don't know who he is, but he didn't deny it. Guy who's paid to represent the interests of corporations. I'm saying that literally. That's literally what he gets paid to do. Was critiquing Bernie Sanders, claiming that Bernie Sanders stayed in the race to sell books in 2016. Now, I think people can have complaints about anything that is real. If people want to complain that Bernie Sanders stayed in the race longer than they wanted him to, fine, that's your opinion. But when you look at every policy proposal that is out there, and if you support Joe Biden, well, then this is not for you. But for the rest of you, every single proposal that the candidates are promoting in some way, and I would argue in a very large way, is a function of Bernie Sanders pushing these proposals in the first place. All the stuff on healthcare, this conversation would be radically different had Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race in January of 2016. It would be radically different on healthcare. It would be radically different on labor. Elizabeth Warren would not be pushing the labor stuff that she's pushing. On other, to a certain extent, maybe climate, although I would imagine they would all be pushing it fairly significantly. But without Bernie Sanders, the primary argument that has existed in the Democratic Party at this point would not be happening. It would be basically like, how can we shore up parts of the ACA? That's it. That's it. Biden would be defining it. So having people like Julian Castro in there putting one proposal forward that gets picked up by the others, that's great. I'm down with that. Which is also why I love this, that Sanders is unveiling this, because it's hopefully will put pressure on the other candidates to adopt the similar. The idea is that we want to push the Democratic Party to the left. I'd like to be in a position to execute these proposals, but the point is, if the Democrats are running for the next 10, 15 years on these proposals, they adopt them. When they get into office, they're going to have to push them. Sanders' labor platform includes ending at-will employment so companies could no longer fire workers without showing they had just cause, extending collective bargaining rights to state and local government employees. That was We have that on a federal level, not on states and locals necessarily. Allowing federal employees to strike. The plan would create sectoral collective bargaining system like they have in Europe, that in which labor and management would negotiate minimum standards. Sort of like show business right now. It happens, I don't know if what happens in other industries, but I'm pretty sure that what we have in show business, there's a minimum standard. There's no SAG-AFTRA job that I can take that doesn't pay a minimum. I can get paid more, but there is scale, period. And it would be a similar, I would imagine, dynamic as that. It would halt via executive order pension benefit cuts, which were made possible by a 2014 compromise signed into law by President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden, since he wants credit for all that. It would require companies to recognize unions once the majority of workers sign cards. That's card check. Right now what happens is they sign cards, then they got to petition the National Labor Relations Board for a vote. During that time, when the vote comes, companies bring in spokespeople, movies, experts to dissuade people from the union. Veiled threats. Maybe they'll punish some of the union leaders if they can get away with it. If they're real morons, they'll announce they're doing that on Twitter. Like that. What is that? Was he the Barstool Sports moron? It will
Unions are for pussies.
Ban mandatory workplace anti-union meetings. It will abolish state right to work laws that prohibit mandatory union fees. It will make it harder for companies to claim their workers are independent contractors than employees, so no wage theft. It'll protect workers' jobs during work stoppages. This is huge. And I don't imagine that the majority of the candidates will adopt all of this, but I imagine that the candidates will adopt some of it, and it'll put pressure on them. And Joe Biden can harken back to all the days where he was, hard hat Joe or whatever it was. And
well, with the labor unions. Stuff. And I came down and I said, I remember when Bobby Kennedy was killed in 1980. Strom Thurmond and I took shots. I said, I don't want them busing, but I don't believe in full segregation. He said, I do, but he was a great guy. And we worked together. We said Bobby Kennedy shouldn't be shot in the head.
He's such
folks,
a dry
that's what we got to do.
Here it is, folks. Here is your most electable hashtag, a moment of the day. Here is the most electable candidate the Democrats have to win the presidency. The most electable. Here he is right now speaking at, where was it, an Iowa fair? Iowa on Tuesday.
Just like in my generation, when I got out of school, that when Bobby Kennedy and Dr. King had been assassinated in the 70s, late 70s, when I got engaged, up to that time, remember, there was none of you women will know this, but a couple men may remember. That was a time in the late 60s, the early 60s and 60s where it was drop out, go to Haight-Ashbury, don't get engaged, don't trust anybody over 30.
Wait, women weren't involved in that?
Yeah, I don't know what. That's the weirder part.
Strom wondered. He was like, "Why is it all you hippie kids? Why weren't there any women in the free love movement?"
So is this guy saying? Wait a second. It sounds to me like he's saying, like, I gave up all that. I gave up all that. That's what all the guys were doing. You gals wouldn't know about that.
100% gay dudes in Haight-Ashbury. Fun fact.
What's that? Back then?
That's what he's implying.
Yeah, let's try. I don't know.
Wait, let's play this again. Because a lot of people are making a big deal out of the 70s, and he goes back and he tries to cover his tracks by saying 60s over again.
No, it says he says late 70s.
He says late 70s, but then he goes back around and he's trying. You can tell that he catches himself a little bit. But the way that he papers over it, he's like, I just got to say something that's vaguely misogynist so that people will pay more attention to that.
My generation, when I got out of school, that when Bobby Kennedy and Dr. King had been assassinated in the 70s, late 70s, when I got engaged. Up to that time, remember, none of you women will know this, but a couple men may remember. That was a time in the the early 60s and 60s, where it was drop out, go to Haight-Ashbury, don't get engaged, don't trust anybody over 30.
Yeah, man, why do we bring all these freaking women around?
Guys
man?
being dudes.
I don't want
Haight-Ashbury.
any girls at Haight-Ashbury.
Jacking with your homies.
Because when
No,
they have
I don't
their
think that's what it was.
When they have their periods, it ruins the weed harvest, man.
I don't. At that time, that's not what that was about.
Hey, Joe, why did you try to bring a girl with you to Haight-Ashbury, man? We hate them.
Wasn't the tune in drop out
dudes
thing?
went there.
No.
We don't have dudes here, man.
You're thinking of the Castro,
No,
but
he's saying that no women did this.
Did you ever watch?
He is saying no women did it, but it's not a gay thing. He's just saying that this was what was enticing young men to go out
No,
there.
he's just implying it without realizing it.
Did you ever
It's
watch
funny to me.
Hair, man? That guy went to Vietnam just so he could get away from his old lady, man.
Was he just saying? I guess the real question is Joe Biden just saying that everybody who went to San Francisco in the 60s was gay, or that he just didn't believe that women had that option to
I
go?
think that he doesn't think like the option between whether being politically active or dropping out. I think he thinks that didn't apply to women because women weren't political back then.
I think James Maddox explained to him that it was only homos in Haight-Ashbury.
I mean, yeah, women have been.
I remember Strom Thurmond. He said it's all a bunch of gays, and
This
I
is
said
why-
I'm Syracuse Joe.
What he's trying to say is hey fellas, am I right? You went there to do guy stuff and have sex with women.
I think
but, women
I
didn't
think he
do
was
that.
saying. I think he was
trying to
making
talk
the
about
point.
getting out of the draft. I think that's what he's
Well,
trying
and
to say.
political apathy in
it
general.
doesn't make any sense.
I
but
think the
he's
draft,
referring
or
to
I
it.
think he's saying that it was very enticing to go and be irresponsible, but I was not that guy.
Yeah, because he talks the same way. Yeah, it's about the being politically active or just dropping out and doing drugs, basically.
Yeah, they were out there doing drugs. Meanwhile, I was studying for the bar.
And getting engaged. I wasn't
engaged.
going out and having a
That's
non-perfect
what it
sex
was.
life by
That's what it
going
was.
out there.
No women have ever done drugs.
I was planning on thinking of practical ways.
Do we know what
could you
time
have
that
a couple
was?
Of Negroes.
Do we
at
know
the
what time that speech was
PSA?
given during the day? Because The Hill is reporting, and there's a quote, Biden has a tendency to make the blunders late in the day, his allies say, particularly after a long swing on the road. That doesn't happen much when you're president or when you're campaigning.
It's interesting because after a long day, I like to play a pickup basketball game. How you like me now, plugs?
Like he had last week in Iowa, they say something needs to be done to give the candidate more downtime as the campaign intensifies in the fall. I have a suggestion, and that is to drop out. That will give him a lot of downtime. It will refresh him, and he can come back. He can come back
Tune
and
in,
he can give a talk at the convention.
He'd probably give a good convention
Speech.
talk.
If we let him
18 months to
let
rest
him
up,
Yeah.
he'll nail it.
All right.
I talked to Strom Thurmond. Why are we so divided? He said it's because they're forcing our lunch counters. And I said, by golly, I don't totally disagree or agree, but we're Americans. And he was a great guy.
All right.
He was upset when Bobby was killed in 1979. Women.
We're going to take a break,
I'm
go to
tired,
the fun
gotta
half.
back out.
We're going to take a break, go to the fun half. Did not get to calls yet. Apologies. We will immediately, as soon as we get in there. We'll have plenty of time to take 4 calls. Folks, just a reminder, you can support the show by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. I get a little bit sentimental when I'm about to take a vacation, because this is the longest vacation I have of the year. It's going to be 7, 8 shows in a row. And so, see ya. We'll see you.
Sounded very sentimental.
No, but I just want to thank our members for making this show possible. Thank all of you for supporting this show in every way that you do. Starting, after Labor Day, it's going to be pretty intense for about 14 months. And it could get pretty intense after that, but it's going to be an intense 14 months. And so buckle up, get ready to do some work. You're going to have to get out there. I encourage you to support any candidate that you support in the primary by actually like getting physical with it. I'm not saying you should beat up people who don't
you should
support.
intimidate other people,
But
threaten them. Be clear about your candidate. Bring
but
back
honestly,
Jamaica in the 1970s. Bring that back.
Do some phone calling. Do some walking and knocking on doors.
Do some harassment of women online.
Harass some women online, of course.
If a woman tells you she's not interested in Andrew Yang's UBI plan, that is absolutely an invitation for further explanation. That did be super detailed. Don't just really be clear about automation and what Andrew Yang's proposing.
Try and mute Narotandon and just move forward and do whatever you got to do. I can't believe I watched some of this stuff and I'm just like, I mean, I got it a little bit more during 2016 because it was a bitter, but these people, like, who are they?
Their brain's broken.
There's something wrong.
They're off.
There's something really wrong.
They're super off.
You got to, it's really decidedly unhelpful.
And unhealthy.
And unhealthy. I mean, like, honestly, like, the Center for American Progress, we don't have big institutions, even on the center left. Things like Think Progress, valuable resource. Maybe you should spend a little less time online, tweeting, a little more time trying to build these organizations, which are, it's a tough time for them. I mean, honestly, I'm flabbergasted.
I think 6 figures a tweet is a good salary.
I would do it. I would do it, but I would also start to wonder, hey, wait a second, maybe I should focus a little more on the organization.
Oh yeah, I have infinitely more respect for people who get out there and try to execute the courage of their convictions than people who don't.
In the meantime, join themajorityreport.com. Don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. And all next week, we will have brand new content for you. And every day we will have fresh daily content for you on the AM Quickie. You can get it by signing up for the Majority Report on iTunes, wherever the podcast is available. Stitcher, Spotify, all the different places where you can get podcasts.
That is a real one.
Is it?
Well, it's like some weird sort of business associated.
All right.
Yeah.
Overcast.
I like Overcast.
All of them. And you can hear it then. Yesterday was Tuesday. What happened, Michael, in this office?
We had an excellent TMBS, as we're wont to do on Tuesdays. I will say Shahid Buttar, who's running to challenge Nancy Pelosi, was, the
real deal.
Yeah. And even great politicians or people running for office, that was a standout in the sense that I felt like I was interviewing somebody who the content of the interview and the breadth and depth of his synthesis went well beyond a campaign. But that campaign is super important. And I think if anybody could pull off such a Herculean task as actually upsetting Nancy Pelosi, it would be him. And we went everywhere from democratic socialism in relationship to safeguarding constitutional civil liberties and how that intersected with the critique of the national security state, Silicon Valley, and a whole bunch of other topics. Anna Kasparian, amazing as always. In the postgame, an intro to integral theory and Gene Gebser and perceptions of perspective taking, going back to the Renaissance with Jeremy Johnson. And is the left coming back? Election results on Argentina and a bit of an illicit history of the Kirchners and a whole bunch more, including Israel, Brazil, and this amazing initiative in Ethiopia. Patreon.com/TMBS. Michael Brooks Show on YouTube. In the next 60 or so subscribers on YouTube, and we will hit our first 71,000. And come see us Saturday in Chicago, folks, with Chuck Mertz. We're looking forward to it.
Jamie.
This week on the Antifada, we had back our friend Molly Crabapple to talk about her arrest with a bunch of her fellow Jews at last week's Amazon ICE protest, the importance of anti-fascist activism, and then she gave us a little overview of the protests in Puerto Rico that she reported on. As most people probably know, they exploded when Governor Ricardo Rossello's ghoulish frat boy chat logs were leaked to the public. So we talk a whole bunch about that. And then on Friday, for patrons, we have a bonus coming wherein Molly goes over and translates some of the lyrics of the official anthem of the protests, Afilando los Cuchillos by Residente, Ile, and Bad Bunny. Patreon.com/theantifada.
Matt.
A Literary Hangover, last 2 weekends had 2 new episodes of our George Orwell reading series, so check those out. And also on the YouTube channel, the Rucker Bregman episode has just been uploaded. And next week, I think I'm going to start playing around with live streaming on that, so you might want to subscribe.
On
now.
what?
Live streaming on YouTube first, and then I might get Twitch after that. So.
We're going to go to Twitch, I think, following Labor Day. We're going to start to just simulcast and see where that takes us. All right, folks. 646-257-3920. Take your calls now. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey Sam, hey Andy, you guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
I think I might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Hello. I'm Sam Seder. This is the fun half.
Professional.
Yep. Let's get right to it. Calling from a 201 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 201. Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Anthony. I'm calling from New Jersey.
Anthony from New Jersey, what's happening? No, I think I'm okay.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, I have a lot of, I guess, Spanish-speaking cousins, and they all lean right, pretty much. And one of them is like a diehard Trump supporter. And I was just wondering, like, have you ever thought of having like a Spanish language majority report where you like hire like, I guess, Spanish actors to basically, or like political people to recreate the majority report in Spanish? Like, I don't know how many like left-leaning Spanish shows are there out there.
Well, I mean, I've thought about how, I've actually given some thought to translating our show on YouTube, like paying for translations. But
yeah, we've got something in the works with Sam's non-union Mexican equivalent.
I want Antonio Banderas to play me. Sam's looking for some guy in an Argentinian soap opera.
I gotta say that I feel like what you're proposing would not have the proper return on investment that it would involve. We would
Sell
need
out.
Yeah, we would need. Well, I know this from just my Tim Ferriss listening to, but I think what you're talking about in terms of hiring a Spanish-speaking versions of us, and then transcribing the show and having them deliver the show.
Hello, I am here for Senor Seder's divorce proceedings.
Well,
I am his
I don't
parallel version Spanish-speaking.
Well, I don't think the idea would be
doppelganger.
to have someone who just has a Spanish accent. It would be actually.
Well, he might need
Spanish.
to speak English for your divorce. I'm saying that if this person had a broad portfolio in terms of just occupying your life generally, it could become
Now, if I could arrange something like that.
Wait, sorry, I missed that.
Well, just where someone would come in and
if you could find a Spanish person to just be Sam. In general.
Hola, niños. Yo soy tu padres. Maybe like
if we hired people, I'd like to add some dramatic elements as well. Like maybe one of us is involved in the drug trade, some other stuff going on. We could make it a whole like telenovela.
Well, I mean, yeah, we could maybe like, but,
that would be
but
fun.
I mean, I understand your point. It would be nice if something like that existed. I certainly, in the back of my head, when I think about like if I ever had any ambitions to expand this as a business, doing something like that, trying to find shows like that would be one of those things. But appreciate the call, and if you know Tom Steyer, have him call in.
Yeah, Tom Steyer. This is one of endless amounts of things Tom Steyer could do that would be better than running for president.
Calling from a 501 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
It is you.
I'm Will from Arkansas.
Will from Arkansas. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I love you, Sam. I think you're the best left-wing orator, is the word you like. And also that Michael's laugh makes my day about 90% better. So I love both you guys and Jamie and Matt.
That's great.
Big fan.
That's great. It sounds also like maybe your days start off at a baseline that's pretty low, but I'm glad to we can help.
I'll take it, but it's a pretty low energy call in terms of emphasis here, and I'm not buying some of the presuppositions.
What else you got?
Well, after I buttered you up, I'm calling because I'm a massive Destiny fan, and he's been doing some pretty rough stuff. He talked to Mike from PA at 4 a.m. last night, arguing over stock buyback, and they were like, why would you even do that? And they were just screaming at each other. And Mike has done a good job talking to him and being reasonable. He won him over on like Bernie electability. But I want you to talk to him, Sam. We need you. We need you to save
Wait. Did you say at 4 a.m.?
That's insane.
Yeah. They had like a 3-hour argument over stock buyback.
Okay, but wait a second.
Is this a drunk
So did
dial?
did they start at 1 a.m.?
I'm not exactly sure when they started. I just know
Wait a
that
second. Were you up at 4 a.m. watching this?
Oh no, I watched it this morning. I watched the VOD.
Wow. I would be happy to talk to Destiny or anybody about stock buybacks. Of course. Are you kidding?
He's only.
I'll do it on
he's
vacation.
only defending it because he said one time that AOC is economically illiterate, and he just defends that position to the death. I don't understand it at all.
I don't understand it either. But yeah, I'd be happy to talk
I
about
out
stock
for Destiny.
buybacks.
And everybody's like, oh, he ain't got to speak enough.
We would all be happy to drunk dial Destiny about stock buybacks.
But I will say this: I am not.
magazine factoids
I am
about
not
the
doing
TPP.
it.
It's
I'm not
so
doing
fair.
it in anything that involves the words "AM" at all. I mean, maybe 9:30 a.m. I would do, but not before then. But
This might be a good thing
appreciate
for you when
the
you can't
call.
sleep. Just
Just
Twitch.
I can't sleep. I'm gonna call Destiny. I like
Twitch to
Destiny.
delirium
Jesus
at
Christ, man.
4 in the
Jesus.
morning.
People were very. You didn't let him talk. Called a debate.
You spoke 80% of the time.
Well, I don't know if you know
That's a
about
life
in
goal
chess.
in
If you know in
general.
chess, what they do is they do the stoppers, and then that's like,
Well, he should have tried.
I'm joking. It's the Walter Block thing. Calling from a 603. Calling from a 603 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Ryan, the NRA shill from New Hampshire.
Oh, Ryan, the NRA shill from New Hampshire. What's on your mind?
Stoked.
Appreciate the self.
No, I was just calling in. You accuse me of being a paid NRA shill. I am at this point amateur, not professional.
Okay.
But
Did I accuse you of being a
appreciate
paid NRA shill?
I believe so. I was the common sense guy.
Oh, no. I think I said I hope you were.
Yeah,
you
there was.
hoped. Well,
Yeah,
I
I'm saying for
appreciate
your
that.
sake, I hope.
But yeah.
I hope that you weren't doing it as an amateur, but I guess no selection.
Otherwise, you're
okay.
just standing them
okay.
for free.
So what do you have on tap for today for free?
So actually, I think you talked about this a little bit with the text messages yesterday or maybe the day before. But I think the Democrats, would be good for them to push for expanded House of Representative seats to help kind of correct some of the gerrymandering issues and some of the just the electoral college issues.
Yes.
We could go up to 1,500 seats in the House of Representatives, and it'd still be lower population per congressional district than the last time we did it in 1911.
Yep.
It seems like a pretty good policy point, but I don't hear anyone talk about it, and I was just curious of your thoughts.
I mean, I don't know if I would go that far, but only because I think it's, I think it's very hard to do. But yes, I think we should up the representation of people without a doubt. I just think that, pushing for that type of structural reform when we can't even get rid of the filibuster and we can't even get voting rights for Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, I think is a long hope. But I, in terms of principle, yes, increase the democracy.
Just another point is there's a lot of states like New Hampshire and other small rural states that are at risk of losing congressional seat and going from 2 to 1.
Yeah.
So I think it might be possible for some bipartisan support because, like I said, a lot of the small rural states are about to lose half the representation.
That's conceivable. That's a good point. I mean, I'm certainly open to it. I just think that
Opportunity cost. If that's what you're going to push for now.
Exactly. I mean, I think that structural reform right now is going to be very difficult. And if there's going to be any, I would like to exercise it on the Supreme Court on some level. House of Representatives, my least of my worries right now.
But I mean, it directly affects the Electoral College.
I guess in that respect, but I also would like to see the Electoral College go away. Frankly, I don't quite see the point of it. But Yeah, good idea. Better than this one. Are you paid by the National Popular Vote people? I hope you are.
I mean, if you know any numbers, then give me. I'll call and see if I can get some.
All right. Appreciate the call, Ryan.
All right. Have a good day.
Calling from a 650 area code. We got a lot of people on the lines, folks. 650.
Sound check. Am I good?
You are good. Who is this?
Hi, my name is Caesar. I'm from the Bay Area.
Caesar from the Bay Area.
I'm a Latino listener, and I've heard your previous caller. And I just want to let you know that I have a cousin that could do the show for a bargain and could probably install some bathroom tile if you wanted him to. Just to let you know, you have my number.
I'm pretty good at bathroom tiling myself, frankly.
Very good.
Do you really have a cousin who could do it?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
So the reason I called was you previously had some callers talk about bring up the issue of rent control, and you don't really quite as go into it. You have you just had other topics to talk about.
Right.
But a person that you guys could interview that's really good on this is Tony Samara. He is the program director of land use and housing at Urban Habitat, a nonprofit in Oakland, and I think you should have him on.
Okay, we'll put him on the list. Appreciate the call.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Brendan, will you write that down? Tony Samara, Urban Habitat.
They've been doing some interesting things with tenant organizing out in Oakland, too.
Oakland's always been a hotbed of that stuff.
Yeah.
Calling from a 330 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. This is Nick from Canton, Ohio.
Nick from Canton, Ohio. What's on your mind, Nick?
Well, I've had a couple of conversations in progressive circles about what is going to be, or what should be rather, the focus of the healthcare movement if we pass Medicare for all. And a lot of people have brought up the idea that it would be important to not just focus on having single payer, but also having like an NHS type situation where we would have mostly public hospitals and sort of end private control of that particular aspect of the healthcare system. And so my question is, what would be some added benefits to having that sort of system that could be designed based off of the British NHS or the Taiwanese healthcare system that would add to a Medicare for all system, assuming that we were able to pass Bernie Sanders or Jayapal's bill?
I mean, I feel like that's getting way ahead of ourselves on some level. I mean, it's a really, hypothetical conversations like that are okay. I mean, I think the first thing that I would do, maybe in tandem with Medicare for all, would be to deal with hospital concentration, corporate concentration of hospitals, of ownership of hospitals. I would probably look to some type of antitrust stuff to basically say, the same rules that we used to have with like media, where you can't own X number of facilities in one localized area, something to that effect.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think another aspect of it is, sorry.
I would introduce maybe more, and I think this may be actually part of, I think Jayapal's bill, and maybe Bernie's as well, money to create rural clinics. So I would actually, add some competition that way. Just like the contemplating turning our entire medical delivery system to the government at this point seems like, we might as well. We're going to have to deal with climate change. Let's put it this way. We're going to have to deal with climate change in such a big way before we get to even something like that. I mean, it's honestly, it's like you're basically saying to me, well, let's talk about colonizing Mars, because it has taken, I mean, honestly, think of how long it's taken to get to like just the ACA in American history, right? I mean, we're talking about like half of our history when was the first, Medicare for all proposal was like Truman? I mean, so we're talking 70 years out, 80 years out, and we're still not even, I still think that we're probably, I mean, who knows, but at least, total best case scenario, we're 10 years out from Medicare for all. That's if everything like lines up. I just think that, I don't know.
Well, it's also true that sometimes history moves slow and sometimes history moves fast.
That's also true.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, one thing that I'll say is that I'm currently writing a blog post for Data for Progress on Medicare for All as an LGBT issue.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that I'm finding is that when we specifically look at rural areas, that the healthcare outcomes for LGBT people are much worse compared to LGBT people in urban areas. And so I think that one solution that could also be part of Medicare for All is focusing on building public hospitals in those areas where marginalized populations are not served as well.
Yeah.
And so there certainly can be other public aspects of the medical delivery system where we can do that, but not necessarily, focus on nationalizing the Cleveland Clinic or something like that,
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I say, I think that may be even in check in both those bills, because I think there is money in there for clinics at the very least in rural areas. Appreciate the call. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So I want to get to do we have that footage of the Amazon on fire, basically?
The good Amazon, not the one owned by Jeff Bezos.
Right. I'm just looking at some of these pictures here. Do we have that video? Is that me? Oh gosh, I think that's a. Is this? Can we credit this? There have been reports. Before we get to this, there has been reports of major, in fact, record forest fires in Brazil. And within the Amazon rainforest, there have been 73,000 fires so far detected by Brazil's Space Research Center. It's an 83% increase over the same period in 2018. Now, here's the weird part. This surge in wildfires has taken place since Bolsonaro took office in January. He has vowed to develop the Amazon for farming and mining. He has ignored concerns about this from the international community because, of course, the Amazon forest is one of the premier carbon sequestration entities that we have in the world. Bolsonaro was asked about the spread of fires. This is from Reuters. He brushed off the criticism, saying it was the time of the year, or the queimada, which is the burn, when farmers use the fire to clear land. However, the space agency, INPE, which has the satellite images, said the large number of wildfires could not be attributed to the dry season or natural phenomena alone. There's nothing abnormal about the climate this year or the rainfall in the Amazon region, which is just a little below average, said an INPE researcher. People frequently blame the dry season, but that's not quite accurate, he said. The dry season creates the favorable conditions for the use and spread of fire, but starting a fire is the work of humans, either deliberately or by accident. Here is just some of like the footage, and we got to just credit this.
Abdi Rizak.
There you go. And watch some of this footage. It's pretty nuts. This is on Twitter.
There's no audio, it looks like.
There's no audio. Someone just driving by. I mean, it's just vast stretches. And it's hard to know. I wouldn't put it past Bolsonaro. I mean, look, would you put it past him to go out and send people out, start fires here and there and there?
Well,
wherever?
I mean, it's even. I wouldn't put it past him, but I mean, it's even. You could look at it. He is telling people, like as an example, trying to pass their versions of stand your ground laws, or saying that like police should be able to shoot kids in favelas with it, which already is a major problem. So it's like, what you're doing is sending a signal. I mean, a couple weeks ago, an indigenous leader was murdered, I think, by people looking to mine gold. You're basically telling corporate interests and large farm like,
shackles
you
are
do
off.
this, no problem.
Shackles are off.
Exactly.
Right.
This map looks just horrifying.
Yep.
And he also fired, the head of the space agency
exactly.
a couple of weeks ago.
Who was talking about this.
Who was talking about this and basically refusing to give false estimates, essentially.
Yep.
Well, no big deal. According to that tweet, it only provides 20% of the world's oxygen.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
There's two main, as Vijay Prashad was explaining this last week, there's a site in Papua New Guinea and the Amazon. And those are the two... Those are like the fulcrums of our global climate, and you have an administration. And this is also the idea of removing protective status for indigenous people as well. So this is a ethnic cleansing story.
Let's go to 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. How are you, sir?
Good. I speak Spanish, and I'm working on a Maoist Christina Kirchner impression. So,
well, you up for a commute? Are you up for a cross-country commute?
Bernie or bust Emiliano Zapata.
That actually sounds amazing. What do you think of Christina?
What was I going to say? So I think that your broader point is still correct, even though there's some good immigration plans, which is that the Democrats need to coalesce around something that is easy to communicate and some points that aren't quite so technical. Right. Even with Castro, he seemed really focused on this idea of decriminalizing unlawful entry, and that's really small bore. It doesn't.
Well, the problem is too is it allows for a lot of exploitation of these folks when they get here.
Sure. I mean, so they used. It's true that they used strict enforcement of that misdemeanor law to separate families for a while last year, and then they stopped doing it. So they're not strictly enforcing that law anymore. Now, you should still get rid of it, but he had two debates where he had the opportunity to go out and really, communicate something, and he chose to lean on that one aspect of his plan both times. And if you were to repeal that law, it would be good. I'm not saying it's not, but it would also fix virtually nothing.
Right.
So they're saying, well, it should be a civil offense. Well, that's how it's treated 99% of the time already. And as the administration is showing, there's other cool ways to separate families. You don't necessarily need this misdemeanor law. So, he has a pretty good plan and some good ideas, but I think he failed to communicate effectively what the plan is. And the problem is, like you mentioned the other day, most people kind of want to just ignore this. They don't really want to think about it too hard or very often, except for the people who feel really, really strongly the other way. And so I don't know.
I think that's a similar, to be honest with you, I think that's a similar dynamic with guns. I mean, I think that I think when there are particular instances that offend the sensibilities, people are like, I don't want that. But they're not willing to sort of subscribe to some broad the idea of like, we're not going to prevent anybody from coming in and being a citizen. They would rather hear we're going to have a humane and just policy and then just sort of walk away and say like, yeah, you guys take care of the details. As opposed to something more specific of like, we're simply going to let everybody, we're going to have a procedure for it. We're going to have, maybe, some criteria where we will, where 5% of people we will turn away. I'm saying an arbitrary number, but some percentage of people we're going to turn away. But broadly speaking, the vast majority of people who want to become citizens will become citizens.
I think what I would say is that we want the immigration plan that exists already in the minds of most Republicans, which is if you're here and you work hard and you're a good person and you can pass a background check, you should be able to get in line and legalize your status. And the problem is that's what most people think exists, but it does not exist. And so we want to put in place the plan that you imagine exists already, but doesn't. And because people...
Right, this whole concept of like, get in line. Why are you jumping ahead of line? The whole line concept seems to be a sort of a fantasy plan that exists.
Right, and it makes sense that if there was a line that you could go and get into, you could go down to the paper store and sign up and get a green card, it would make sense to be really opposed to illegal immigration because, all you got to do is go down and do the thing and then you'd have papers. And if you don't, there must be some nefarious reason. But like all of that is based on a faulty premise. So that's kind of how I would try and frame it. I wanted to ask you one quick question and then I'll jump. I've been thinking a lot about my time as a Mormon missionary. I'm a former Mormon, as I've mentioned before, and how it's not an easy thing to sell Mormonism because it's super weird.
Really?
But there,
Did you have? Did I already ask you this? Did you have that like the animated book that explained how the angel came down to Smith?
Guys, I know it's weird, but you get to bang a bunch of girls on your own mood. Think about it.
When I was a kid,
there is a pretty strong payoff on the back end.
When I was a kid, I was traveling through Europe at one point, and whenever I would meet Mormon missionaries, I would spend a lot of time talking to them. And I saw that book they had, like the animated version, multiple times. Did they give you those, or this was way before your time?
No, I had those growing up, but no, we didn't have those on my mission. But the point is, we had to think a lot about how to communicate to people and how to sort of recognize their concerns and all these sorts of things. We would also get into debates with like Jehovah's Witnesses. It was like a scene from West Side Story, a couple of Mormon missionaries. And so anyways, those types of contentious encounters always left both sides leaving more emboldened, I think, in their own dumb beliefs. Even if, like, objectively you lost the debate, I don't know that you can really lose or win a debate amongst those two groups. But even if they scored most of the points, you would come away feeling more Mormon-y than you had going into it. So it really was not an effective way of communicating or trying to win hearts and minds. And I wonder if this is not a function of Bernie Broism, but onlineism, if we need to start thinking more strategically about how we communicate. It seems like online, the goal is to people see themselves not as missionaries of an idea or like trying to win hearts and minds, but we're all trying to score points or get a big dunk on somebody. And sometimes that's important when there's bad faith actors or people you're never going to win over anyways. But I do see a lot of hostility, hashtag online, between sort of like leftist purists and people who are maybe more century or people who just care less about politics. And it seems like that's that is harmful, and it is a real phenomenon. And maybe maybe we need to have a conversation about how to engage with those people. And I think especially, this is the last point, and then I'll go. The idea behind Bernie being the best candidate is he's going to lead this grassroots movement, and he's going to bring in more people to the fold. And that's going to be really hard to do if there's a sense that people who are coming into this for the first time and they're maybe not as woke or they're not as informed, if they're going to be met with hostility and dunking and that sort of thing rather than a sense of community. So
yeah, I mean, on your latter point, it's hard for me to get a full on assessment of this because it's sort of just the waters I swim in. I mean, I think the analogy of your sharks and jets with the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons, for me, the issue isn't what the players thought. The issue is the people who gathered around you and listened and what they thought. I mean, I'm in a business where, and I entered into this business as a performer. And so I'm simply conscious of the audience. And I think there is, I can't make really any broad assessments about the way that people are fighting or who's fighting online, but I can say that people should enter into these exchanges with a broader audience in mind and be conscious of how it's received by other people.
Man.
And I think that will go a long way to saying what's the value of me dunking on this person. I say this as someone who believes in very specific instances that is a lot of value on it, of it. But you have to be aware that the what you're doing has no value in terms of the individual you are you're engaging with if you're engaging in that way.
I think I like that he made the distinction though, because I think there's a much broader point about online-ism in general and how it actually bleeds really destructively into even sort of quote, real life spaces. And I always recommend in the kind of family of that, there's always the Vampire Castle essay, which is great. But I think that on the flip side, and I was actually just talking with Hassan Piker about this, there also needs to just be more comfort with people disagreeing with each other. And just because people disagree and have debates, especially among people that you sort of share a set. I've had, friendly disagreements with people I have nothing, the highest respect for on, as an example, some of the intricacies of really establishing the distinction between Sanders and Warren as an example. I think that's actually an important debate, and I think there's real substantive differences there, and none of those arguments or debates have led to I still really like and respect these people. We still work together. That's sort of the paradox is it really all or nothing, either total destruction in a way that's extremely alienating, I think, to normal people, or on the other hand, just some idea that unless we're just always synchronized, we can't have disagreement. And that's just not true. I mean, disagreement can be healthy and it's totally normal and totally fine.
Let's go to, what is this, de Blasio? What's going on with de Blasio?
I haven't watched this yet, but Dave Weigel said
we at least want to give de Blasio props for calling for freeing Leonard Peltier before we make fun of him.
Yes, he's calling for freeing of Leonard Peltier, and then this happened to him.
Every day. Well, organized labor in Iowa has been fighting a really, really difficult battle every day. Organized labor in Iowa has been fighting a really, really difficult battle.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
That hurts.
So cute.
That may drop him from 0.75 to...
But seriously, good job on the Leonard Peltier thing.
Yes.
I'm telling you, he's right. He is always a contender for number 2 choice.
He's been listening to his kids.
So here is Donald Trump freaking out about the reports that the economy is going soft. Apparently, they've had to tell donors that hey, there's a chance that there may be a small, mild, short recession. Don't worry. But just in case you were wondering about our economic powers, if you reelect us. Now, here's the thing. Here's what is problematic about this promise. He needs a a Democratic Congress to go along with these proposals. But all they got to do is float tax cuts for some of those donors.
Maybe now I have to, but
yeah.
just wait.
We've heard again potential cut in the payroll tax, indexing capital gains. What would you accept?
Well, you know, we've been talking about indexing for a long time, and many people like indexing, and it can be done very simply. It can be done directly by me. And so we've been looking at that. As you probably have heard, I can do it directly. So we're talking about indexing, and we're always looking at the capital gains tax, payroll tax. We're looking at, I would love to do something on capital gains. We're talking about that. That's a big deal, goes through Congress. Payroll tax is something that we think about, and a lot of people would like to see that, and that very much affects the workers of our country, and we have a lot of workers. Right now, by the way, we have more people working today than we've ever had before in the history of our country. We have almost 160 million people working today. I think the word recession is a word that's inappropriate because it's just a word that the certain people, I'm going to be kind, certain people in the media are trying to build up because they'd love to see a recession. We're very far from a recession.
There you go. So Trump claims that he can index the capital gains tax unilaterally. Supposedly, it would cost, according to an analysis by economists at the Penn Wharton Budget Model School, it would add $100 billion to the national debt. And it would benefit, of course, the top 0.1%. Not the top 1%, the top 0.1%. Now, this would be indexing the capital gains tax to inflation. So, in other words, you go out, you buy something. You go out and buy something for $100. Let's say a stock. It goes up, huge run to $125. You sell it over the course of, let's say it goes up by $25 over the course of 2 years. You sell it. You pay taxes on the $25, capital gains. Of course, it's reduced because that is so much harder than actually working. It's less that you pay gains on that $25 than you would if you had actually gone out and dug a ditch to get it. And what he wants to do is say, well, there was 2% inflation during the course of those 2 years. So it's not really $25 that you gained. It is only $20. So we're only going to get taxed on the $20. And he claims that he can do that himself. There is a legal opinion in 1992 that was offered by the Office of Legal Counsel under Herbert Walker Bush. And they say you cannot do that. So, you know, again, it's one of those situations where one of his lunatic advisors is like, you can do it. I don't know if he'll do it. We'll see if he'll do it. But maybe that is the price that he needs to get some donors on board. Guess we're going to find out. Meanwhile, speaking of his cabinet, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we have a vast, vast arsenal of nuclear weapons. They are under the auspices of the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy is under the auspices of a man named Rick Perry. Just if you forgot who Rick Perry is, I take you back to this moment years ago at the I guess it must have been 2007. Maybe it was the 2007 primary debate for the 2008 election. Here is Rick Perry. This was 10 years ago when he was sharp as a tack.
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see. EPA? EPA, there you go. No, okay.
Let's talk deposition.
Seriously?
Is EPA the one you were talking about? Or
No, sir.
You can't name the third one?
The third agency of government, yeah. I would do away with the education, the commerce, and let's see. I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
My God.
Jesus Christ.
Oops.
All right, so I want to cut 3 branches of government. I just can't remember which 3.
Remember when Trump said he's like,
So
he's
many
got
members.
glasses now, but it doesn't work.
Right.
He's not smart.
Well, and he's in charge of our entire nuclear arsenal, which could blow up the world. I don't know, what is it, 200 or 300 times, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
The entire
That's
world.
not terrifying at all.
But good news. I should say the good news is that this was the technology that he had trouble sort of deciphering didn't end up causing a meltdown. But I would remind you, well, let me just explain what happened. On Instagram, sometimes people send around what amount to like chain letters. And they have fake memes and they're sort of pranks. I know this is the case because when my daughter was 12, she fell for one once and called me up and said, "Dad, I'm so sorry." Why? What happened? Well, I clicked on a thing on Instagram and it's going to delete everything on my phone and I'll probably have to get a new phone. What are you talking about? Well, someone wrote this on Instagram and it said something to the effect of like, don't forget tomorrow starts the new Instagram rule where they can use your photos and they can wipe your phone if you use the et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, sweetie, that's not true. It's just an internet meme that someone's trying to fool you with. And now she knows to do that. Well, apparently, now she knows that's not anything to panic about. Well, apparently, Rick Perry, not as savvy. He reposted a Instagram post saying that tomorrow, the Instagram rule where they can use your photos, they can be used in court case litigation against you. Everything you've ever posted becomes public from today, even messages that have been deleted or the photos not allowed. Costs nothing for a simple copy and paste. Better safe than sorry. Channel 13 News talked about the change.
Wow.
Channel 13 News did. Talked about the change in Instagram's privacy policy.
Can we just note how it looks like Instagram has been pasted over something else, like throughout this?
Well, I mean, because it's
like bold and like it looks like there's some this W missing. It looks like
Did they use whiteout?
I don't know what's going on there, but
Yeah.
it looks very crude.
Whatever. The point is he reposted this, and then people pointed out, "Hey, dude, you got fooled by an internet meme," and he's like, what are the chances? Feel free to repost. No thanks, Instagram. I'll be darned. First time I've ever seen anything fake on the internet. Oh, glasses. Oh my God, seriously, you mean this is fake?
I'm disturbed by his emoji use.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
men should not use emojis like that.
but here's the thing. It's not just that this
Not
guy's
good.
so dumb
Nobody
that he
should.
falls for,
Not good.
There are phishing scams. There are all sorts of scams online. You could, one phishing email makes it into his email box. We know this is the way that the folks in the Clinton campaign.
Podesta was like, "Oh, I will change my email password."
Exactly.
Thank you.
But for the guy who's in charge of the nuclear arsenal, maybe we're going to want a little bit more savvy about how the internet works. Now, I will remind you that there were reports. It was reported by credible reporters that he thought the job of being the Secretary of Energy was not going to be overseeing the nuclear arsenal that we have in the country, among other things. He thought he was just going to travel around and promote the oil industry to people.
Thought it was going to be like traveling roadshow, bro.
That's what he thought it was going to be.
Hey, you should check out some liquid natural gas.
I mean, on some level,
State of Texas.
that should be just grounds for impeachment of Donald Trump right there. Just sheer incompetence.
I do like the Podesta one, though. Like, oh, a gift certificate for Whole Foods? Absolutely. Oh, no.
It's a
All
little
of me
bit
and their
scary.
attendance emails.
Little scary. Little scary. And I get, listen, my, I'm not Instagram savvy. So you know what I do? I don't go on Instagram. And if I really felt like I need to, because I'm Secretary of Education, then I'd say, or Energy, or Education, or any of the other agencies I've cut, I would say, hey, person I just hired, you're going to be in charge of my Instagram account. You're savvy about that stuff, right? Yes. Okay, good. That's the way you work that.
How you hire top people. We have to get the best people. We need to get the best and the finest, and if we don't, we'll be in trouble for a long period of time.
Tough to argue with that. Let's go just Brian Kilmeade. Let's just check in with Brian Kilmeade again, because I get a lot of response to Brian Kilmeade yesterday, trying to parse the Jewish American things, that they should be loyal. And it's almost like we watched Kilmeade make this point yesterday on Fox and Friends, right? Yesterday, where he said, like, I can't believe Jewish Americans, you know, how they can support Democrats. I think that's where Trump got the comment from. He got it from watching Fox and Friends, and he goes around and he turns it. And now Brian Kilmeade's got to defend the comment that Donald Trump made that was probably based upon Brian Kilmeade's comment the day before. It's like
Ouroboros.
It's some very, very strange, you know, like Escher painting type of situation. Very
It's like
odd.
Twin Peaks.
It really is.
What is time, really?
In fact, this is it's completely dark in their set, and they're doing this in the middle of the day. I'm kidding. No, it's probably first thing in the morning. We're like, we've got to deal with this early. Here is Brian Kilmeade. I don't know what's going on with him. He seems like he's super tanned. I don't know if he was on vacation for a long time, or he just feels like maybe he's got some type of rash situation. He feels like he's like a little bit, I don't know. He's
Hit
having
the tanning booth too
I feel
hard.
like he's having a tough time lately.
Obviously, and she can't believe that we've gotten to a point in our country where we have congresswomen that are completely against giving aid to Israel.
Well, $3 billion, I think annually. A lot of this stuff was cut from President Obama, who had single-digit approval rating with Inside Israel. The president brought up yesterday, I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a lack of knowledge or great disloyalty, because if you compare the two administrations and their allegiance to Israel and their alliance, I think that by far this president has shown more of an allegiance to Israel than President Obama has. So he thinks that somehow that doesn't turn up in the ballot box, where President Trump only got 24% of the American Jewish vote. I guess they could be voting on other things. That could be another factor. One thing that...
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Now, he doesn't quite explain where there's disloyalty to whom, because he realizes, like, oi, I can't believe I'm responsible now for making that number 20% instead of 24% and ruining the whole. I mean, they have destroyed their entire project about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib being anti-Semites, right? I mean, he's out there, Donald Trump, because Brian Kilmeade's little offhand comment that he ad-libbed, and that's why he's probably reading from his script today, saying, like, yesterday when I tried to freelance a little bit, I got in some big trouble. Like, I got the president to repeat what I said, and it's going to sink him. Today, he's reading on a script, make sure that he just sort of like lays it out, doesn't address the dual loyalty that they're supposed to have. Maybe they're voting on other things. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe they also are voting on other things and also have some issues with Israel.
Total anti-Semites. Anyways, what's wrong with you people? What about your second country? Or your first country? Doesn't make any sense.
It's unbelievable. Who is the RJC?
Republican Jewish...
A voice for American Jews in the GOP.
Yeah, here we go. We take the president seriously, not literally. President Trump is pointing out the obvious. For those who care about Israel, the position of many elected Democrats has become anti-Israel.
What about voting Democrats that are Jewish?
Yeah. When Tlaib and Omar talk loyalty, they're questioning American Jews' loyalty to the United States. President Trump is talking about caring about the survival of the Jewish state. Uh,
I like that the first reply is keep tweeting.
Right, exactly. I mean, this is just, it's stunning. It really is stunning. These people are just insane maniacs. And
if Bernie Sanders,
right.
crazy Bernie, if his proposal goes through,
one last thing.
Shylock would be out of business.
One last thing, and we'll do some phone calls. Sean Spicer is apparently going to be on Dancing with Stars. And I have two reactions to this. One is that's usually the last vestige of a celebrity. Very often it is the last time that you will make some cash. It probably presages a celebrity Big Brother type of situation or something like that.
It's really a cruel thing to call it if you think about it.
What's that?
Dancing with the Stars.
Right. Exactly. Like, guess what, buddy? Well, he's theoretically the star. That's what's sort of problematic about it. There was some tweet where somebody said, I never understood in studying, like when I was like learning about history, about the Holocaust, like how things like that could happen in a place, like how do you slip into something like that? And then I saw Sean Spicer on the Emmys and I understood a lot of things. And I think there really is an argument that now I understand a lot of ABC viewers, they like the Trump administration. And I imagine ABC in particular is a network that aims for people in the middle of the country, in the southern parts of the country. That is where they make their hay, as it were. And you can go back over the years and you can sort of see that by the shows that they put on to a large extent. But there's an individual who works at ABC. I don't know who it is. I have no idea who made this decision, and a bunch of people signed off on it. And I can assure you that those people do not live in the South. They do not live in the middle of the country. They are coastal people who I would imagine at least some of them would not vote for Donald Trump. I would imagine some of them are raising money against Donald Trump. And the complete jettisoning of one's political views when you make a decision to normalize and celebrityize someone like Sean Spicer, who was horrific in his lying to the American public, is, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I understand, like, if someone came to me and said, like, well, you know what? Everybody who was involved in signing off on this, they're all Trump supporters. All right. You know what? Trump supporters exist. But I know that's not the case. And it just shows an incredible lack of, human integrity. And then stuff like that, those small decisions that are shrouded in like, well, I'm not going to get in the way of this. I got my career to worry about and This is going to be good for good TV. People are going to want to watch Sean Spicer. We've run out of people who are willing to do this. I don't know. It's disgusting to me. And what's even worse, this clip we're playing right here, this is from Good Morning America. Their news morning show or whatever it is. Play it one more time. He comes out like he's a WWE star.
Straight from the briefing room is Sean Spicer.
And I want one correction here. He's not straight from the briefing room. He's been doing nothing since he left there because actually other people have standards.
I think honestly, straight from being drunk on a former Fox Guys show whose name I don't remember. Bowling. Literally straight from being tipsy on a YouTube show.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
nothing wrong with that. Oh, believe me.
But let's be
I think
honest
it's the
about
best
it
thing
in the
he's ever done.
Right.
I'm just saying it's not the briefing room.
No,
I would be happily come with that spot. straight tipsy from a YouTube show. Gotcha.
Went to my alma mater, sadly.
Connecticut College's most famous alum.
Kevin Sorbo went to mine, so it's all right.
It's interesting. You look at Bates, and you got Benjamin E. Mays, who's, of course, president of Morehouse College, advisor to MLK, and you have Sean Spicer. So it's great. Well done.
Yeah, I guess we got to watch it.
Straight from the briefing room is Sean Spicer.
The nice thing is Sean will be in charge of assessing audience size throughout the entire.
That's hilarious how he was gaslighting the entire country by lying about what was obvious to everybody's face. That's hilarious. He was just a public official when he did that.
This is so weird.
And here's the guy who told everybody that the fallout from Chernobyl wasn't going to be a problem at all. Just kidding.
Here's the guy who told him to throw the switch, even though the safety procedure wasn't in place. This is like one of those, this was just
Dabo
actually...
Adigbli.
Sorry?
Dabo. I have trouble pronouncing his last name. Adigbli.
Oh, you're looking up a cool Connecticut college.
No, I knew Dabo.
He was a civil rights attorney?
Yeah, he should have been OLC.
It's very depressing. This is just not funny, though.
No, it's not.
It's like it's actually just really gross.
It's gross. It's super gross. It's super gross.
Ray Lewis,
Everybody should be disgusting. It's disgusted by that, frankly. Everybody should be. All right, let's go back to the phones. Calling from a 929 area code. I know a lot of people have been holding. We got a lot of people. 929.
Sam, how you doing? This is Holden from Sacramento.
Holden from Sacramento. What's on your mind?
Just wanted to do a quick, there's a Bernie Sanders rally tomorrow evening, Cesar Chavez Park. Anyone in the area? It'd be awesome to see you there. Number two, one of your callers had an interesting idea, and I figured I would promote it a little bit. Any Spanish speaker who listens to your show, I mean, they're more than free to just make a podcast. It's super easy. You can literally podcast from a smartphone. So you can literally regurgitate everything that's on the show. I mean, realistically, what do you think about that?
I would have no problem with anybody who wanted to basically do like a director's cut every day of parts of the show or our videos. I mean, I would welcome it.
Yeah.
If you do that to Literary Hangover TMBS, we will sue you. We will put an immediate cease and desist.
Yeah, if there's anybody out there that think they can do good work, we will promote it.
And actually, for what it's worth, I think there already are people who do that sort of thing, and you should let us know about it.
Yeah.
Because people are already making, I see it from time to time, people do make cuts of all of these shows and sort of mash stuff up, and you should direct things our way because we'll promote it if it's good.
Appreciate
I would
the
love
call.
to hear the Intifada en Español, but I imagine that whoever's doing this has their own unique perspective to add as well.
All right. Here's what we're going to do, folks. We have so many people hanging on the phone. I'm going to take one or two more.
We might not get to all of them.
Regular calls. And then I'm going to go through and do like a speed stuff, like I used to do this on radio, where you got 30 seconds. But you, 714 area code, who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, hi. This is Ivan calling from L.A.
Ivan?
Driving through Tennessee right now.
Okay. What's on your mind, Ivan?
Just let me break a quick stereotype. I'm Latino, gay, truck driver, liberal.
Nice.
Yeah, you probably don't get that many. Yeah, I'm a minority of a minority in the trucking community. So
yes, you are literally only the fourth gay Latino truck driver who is called this week.
Oh wow!
I'm joking.
That's cool.
I'm joking.
All right. Well, no. Well, I have I don't know if it's a question or suggestion. Have you or Michael, or if you know of Cenk from 2IT or Kyle Kalinske, have ever tried getting on Bill Maher's show? Because if you notice, because I've been watching Bill Maher for like 15 years, and I'm disappointed to where he's at right now. Most of his quote unquote left wing guests are usually establishment political hacks.
Yeah.
That won't fight him back on the garbage that he spewed on his last show. Like, have you guys tried to get on the show or
I obviously I don't know about Kyle or Cenk. I can tell you that back 10 years ago now, I got asked to do a show that was a commentary on the Larry David show. That would, when Larry David show was sold to TV Guide, they did this thing where instead of having commercials in between it, they would have this commentary, like a panel that would comment on the show. It was like 2009, I think. I got the call and I thought it was a joke. I didn't think it was real. I showed up and Larry David was there. Seinfeld was there in some basement. And, but Bill Carter, I think his name is Bill Carter, is the EP of the Bill Maher show. And he was EPing this show. And he wanted me on. He was a fan of mine. He wanted me on the show. I'm pretty sure that Bill Maher had basically said no, had X'd me from like the day that we had him on Majority Report in 2004. On the day we launched, we had Bill Maher on by phone with Janine. Okay. And I think I annoyed him in some fashion, and I think that was it. So
I smoke pot, and I'm Jewish too. I would just like to say, when they finally pull the plug on that exhausted thing, give me that show available.
I'd go on Bill Maher. I don't give a crap.
Yeah.
Well, any of us would go on Bill Maher. I've and I want to be really clear. This is of the like I've generically heard stuff, so take it with a grain of salt. But it is interesting. I've definitely heard that. Really, with the exception of people that are like incredible stars in different domains, like Cornel West as a public intellectual, or Killer Mike as a rapper and public intellectual, for what it's worth. Actually, in fact, that his selection of people that would be in our sort of general tier, he does not go left.
No way.
That correction, that curation of centristy whatever is very conscious. It's not that he's lacking awareness of other voices.
Yeah. He doesn't want that. Those voices. But Ivan, I got to jump. I got to jump.
Yeah,
but I
because
appreciate
I remember him. All right, cool.
All right, appreciate the call. He was never as left, I think, as people surmised at one point.
He got to be left in an ultra right wing era when he saying Bush was bad.
He was a libertarian. He got a libertarianish type of guy. He got bumped from ABC because of his comment about, like, I don't think it's cowardly to fly. That takes a lot of guts to fly planes into a building. He was being sort of a pedant.
He's an edgelord.
And and then he became a voice against Bush. And like I say, and I don't think it's happened quite like that in this era. I think there's been more consciousness and, more sophistication. But back then, there was just one set of politics. Like, George Bush is bad, and everybody assumed they were on the same team because of it.
He's so outdated.
All right, here's the deal, folks. This is what we're going to do. 30 seconds. I'm going to time you, and you're going to get to make one comment, and that's it. I'm sorry. That's the way we got to do it.
Lightning round. You're calling from a 406 area code. You got 30 seconds. Who is it? Where are you calling from? And then go.
Hi, my name is Brennan Watson from Montana. I've called in a few times. I just wanted to say thank you all for the free education that you provide us every day, and Lula Libre.
Wow.
Best call ever.
Good job. And made it at 11.73 seconds. Well done. You're calling from a 647 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Sebastian from Canada.
Hello, Sebastian. Go.
I just wanted to contrast trying to talk to my two grandmothers about Bernie Sanders. Talking to my Spanish grandmother, who grew up in the Civil War. She was an anarchist. Our family was Basque. And she literally did not even know who he was. So that's how bad the spread of information is if you're just watching TV. The other one is my Canadian grandmother, who is basically like a centrist liberal.
Yeah.
But despite all of the negative information she's bombarded with about Bernie Sanders, she's come away with this idea that he's like really polite, and he reminds her of FDR. And I was just blown away by that.
Great. Interesting story. Appreciate the call.
Everybody shout a little bit more decorum.
I just want to make it clear so that everybody knows that he was talking about the Spanish Civil War. When he said Civil War, I was like, holy, wait a second.
A super ager.
She's got to be close to like 160.
A lot of wisdom.
All right, calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from? You got 30 seconds.
This is so
Go.
good.
Hey, it's Kowalski from Nebraska. I just wanted to call in and let you guys know that a lot of those burnings in the Amazon is to make way for livestock. The Amazon is where roughly 1/3 to 2/3 of California's water originates from in rainfall, and about 40% of U.S. agriculture is concentrated in California, and about 80% of your vegan and vegetarian diets depend on their success. So if you really want to make things better, we need to free Lula. Thanks.
Kowalski is absolutely the first Republican I will be aggressively campaigning for.
It.
He's amazing.
That's
Go
pretty good.
Kowalski. Someone just sent me a 2008 piece outlining this new Amazon protection initiatives by the Lula government.
Calling from a 585 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is John from Western New York.
John, what's up? You got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was just thinking would probably help getting on some of those shows if somebody wanted to take on Chuck Schumer here in 2022.
Yeah, it's possible.
Just a thought.
All right. Appreciate the call.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? You got 30 seconds.
Hi, this is Cody calling from San Antonio. Hey, I was watching, there was a Razor Fist, Kyle Kalinske. Razor Fist is the guy who impersonated Dennis Miller to insult you. They had an argument about gun control on their debate a while back. I just wanted to give a little light to the fact that, Razor Fist brought up that, they had no, where they banned assault rifles in Japan, they never had any violent gun crimes like that beforehand. And I was just thinking, we should probably all give a little bit more relevancy to gun culture rather than, gun legislation, which is important. But the culture is a big thing. Also, if I can just say real quick, a message from the Progressive Voice YouTube chat. We are on to you, Sam Seder. Have a great day.
Okay, appreciate it. I'm not 100% sure on what they're on to, but I have no doubt it. Those guys are on top of it quite a bit. It could be a myriad of things.
So this is a response to a previous response of a video
there's so
that had
much
been
stuff.
done.
Let me just tell you guys in the Progressive Voices chat. Let me just give you a piece of advice. Keep digging, because there's a lot of stuff out there. You're going to strike gold. Believe me. Believe me. Oh, shoot. I just hung up on 863. I'm sorry. We will, if we swing back around, we'll get, wait. Are you there? 863? This thing is a little bit funky. Calling from a 702 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Got to be quick. 30 seconds.
Hey, Sam. It's Bro Flamingo from Las Vegas.
Bro Flamingo, go. You got 30.
Gotcha. Okay, since I can't talk for too much, I'll go off of Jamie's point. Bill Maher is very outdated. There was a time when he was kind of special because he's kind of the only voice out there. But I kind of feel like he's supposed to be like an edgelord, but I guess the internet kind of replaced him. So now he's kind of like a kind of sundowning old funny man, and he's pretty racist. So I hate him. So big point. Shout out to Jamie. Also, Mike, I like to debate with Destiny. I think you talked a little bit too much. Sorry, this is my criticism, but
Boo.
Awesome. But wait, hold on, Mike.
I'm just kidding.
Awesome. Wait, when you didn't let him get away with the TPP talking points, that was ridiculous. Otherwise, though, I loved it.
I talk too much. Thanks. I agree with you.
Appreciate the call.
But also, he's got to alpha it. If you're gonna play alpha, you got to be alpha. Beta.
Calling from a 630 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yep.
Oh, hey.
Andrew from Illinois. For a long-time listener, first-time caller. Okay.
You
Sorry,
got 30.
I'm a little nervous.
Don't worry, you're doing great.
I want to see the Democrats start, and the left in general, try to reclaim economics. It always seems like, the sort of squealing hordes of the moderates always seem to kind of just inherently believe Republicans are better on that sort of thing. And frankly, that's just simply not the truth. We never even talk about velocity of money, stuff like that. Though I don't generally agree with Andrew Yang, I like the way how he talks about things that are normally, moralized through more of a technical lens, and I think that should be more broadly adapted throughout the left.
Good point. I appreciate the call, Andrew. And I will just add, go quick. I like the idea of an racist word. You did mention that there's such thing as microaggressions, but whenever I even use that money or that word, it makes me want to steal my own lunch money. Agree. I appreciate that call.
Yeah, so
I appreciate it. Got to let you go. 30 seconds. That's the way we're working it right now. But I will say this. I don't necessarily always like the things that Andrew Yang says, but I do like the way that he approaches these things. And I think to further that point, I don't think it's a question of like taking back economics as much as it is understanding that when we talk about economics, 90% of the time we are talking about choices that we make as a society. That there are no sort of like, we're not dealing with the weather. This is not a question of like, should we have a tarp because it's going to rain? We're actually in charge more often than not about the rain, whether it's going to be cold or whether it's going to be hot. It's a question of our own priorities as a society. So like people need to understand that so much of what is considered economics, like we need to do this because there is some physical reason that we need to do it. If we do X, then Y happens, is not the case. The reality is we can make X happen. That's our decision. We can make Y happen. That's our decision. A lot of these outcomes are preordained based upon decisions that we make. And people need to understand that. The best analogy I can give you, we did a lot of different birthing classes, different story, but different types of birthing classes. And there were some that were quite hostile to hospitals. Things like hypnobirthing and natural childbirth, varying degrees, have some hostility towards hospitals. They're not burning them down. I'm just saying they're skeptical. And one of the things I learned in that is that many things that are passed off as medical procedures or that are perceived by us as lay people as medical decisions just turn out to be administrative decisions. Like it's more efficient for us to have shifts that go 6 hours as opposed to 12 hours or 12 hours as opposed to 6 hours. Or, the reason why a doctor might give Pitocin to speed up the birthing process is because they want to sign off in an hour. There's no medical necessity to it. In fact, there's there's some people say like, you don't need Pitocin. You shouldn't have Pitocin. And that dynamic is very similar in the way that I think economics is. People have to understand, and more often than not, when we're talking about economics, we're talking about choices that we make.
I just want to say, that I actually though think that that's a reason to be very hesitant about Andrew Yang, because I think he does speak about technology and economics in a highly determinist way.
Yeah, in a technocratic way as opposed to like political economy, which is the word that describes all this.
Calling from a 978 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 30 seconds.
Hello?
30 seconds. Who is it?
Hello?
Hello? Who's this? Where are you calling from? Yep. Clock is running. 30 seconds.
Oh, hey. Hey, this is Eric from New Jersey. How you doing?
Good. 30 seconds, Eric.
Good. Hey, so yeah, I don't know. We talked a while back. I don't know if you remember. I'm a doctor from New Jersey. Michael, what's going on, brother?
How you doing? Go for it.
I just wanted to, hey man, I wanted to just touch on this latest iteration of the bullcrap sort of anti-Medicare for all argument.
Yep.
They've been basically saying, hospitals are going to be starved for income because Medicare only pays about half of the reimbursement that private insurance pays. I haven't really heard a great counter argument to that, so I just wanted to share it with you, and I don't know, maybe some other time, spend more time giving your take on it. But this is sort of an outcome. I mean, this is basically by design because Medicare does not have the funding to pay what hospitals need. And basically what the hospitals then do is they negotiate with private insurance companies for higher reimbursements. And this is actually a great counter argument against like the Buttigieg versions of this because they don't really want to fundamentally increase the funding of Medicare by charging everybody more taxes. And so you're still going to have all these private insurance companies. You're going to have an underfunded public system, and you're going to have sort of haves and have-nots in terms of who can access medical care. And doctors are going to have the option not to take the Medicare program and go with the private insurance plan. And so if we actually do Medicare for all in Bernie's version or Jai Paul's version, we'll actually have a sufficiently funded system to pay hospitals enough where they can give people the care that they need, and we won't have this problem. So it's sort of I don't know, they're basically reversing cause and effect in a way that's completely disingenuous. And
good point, Eric. Appreciate it. Thanks for the call. We'll talk more about that in the future.
Peace.
Calling from a 925 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? You got 30 seconds.
Hey, Sam. This is Will from Manhattan. How's it going?
Good. 30 seconds. Go.
I'm looking at these polls, and Biden's not going down as much as I want him to. So I'm just wondering, what is your thought on, because in my view, I think Warren has to drop out and endorse Bernie in order for a progressive to win, or the other way around. So I'm just wondering what you think about that, because Biden's not dropping just from his gaffes, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. I mean, I think like it's a little bit early to make that assessment that he's not going to drop. Let's see what happens in the next 2 months and after Iowa, but at least in terms of the polls. But I think ultimately, yeah, one of those two is going to have to look to the other and say, which one of us is it going to be? And, you know, presumably it'll be the one that has less delegates at that point. I mean, I think this is going to go to pretty close to the convention. That's my guess, but we'll see. Calling from a 408 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? You got 30 seconds.
Yeah, this is Marwin from California.
What's on your mind, Marwin?
Just wanted to talk about news sources. What do you guys think of like the gray zone? I've seen Michael on I-24. And as a side note, what's the deal with TYT's quality control? You know, they gave a platform to Dave Rubin, Jimmy Dore, and Michael Tracy, and those guys kind of seem very hackish.
Appreciate the call. I mean,
TYT does a lot of great work. It's a big operation. I think Gray Zone does some really good stuff on Latin America, and they certainly have a very particular perspective, but they're on the ground there. I mean, things like the half-hour interview with Manuel Zelaya, I would definitely put them in your diet.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to, be aware that they have, what their perspective is. You need to be aware of everyone's.
You need to be aware of everybody, right?
Basic assumptions when
Except me, I'm objective.
Yeah, except for me, I'm totally objective. I just call it as I see it, and that's it. I have no priors, and I have no. I come from no. I have no disposition on this stuff until I see it, and then I just analyze it like a computer would. But aside from me. You need to just, understand people's priors. But if you do that, I think Gray Zone is good. I don't know I-24.
I-24 is, look, they actually do book a fair amount of adversarial
They
guests.
hire me, so I don't want to criticize.
No, I mean, it's an ultra right-wing, like it's particularly
I had no idea.
I mean, yeah, I would not, of course, it's extreme right-wing. And now that they don't have, now that David Schuster isn't there anymore.
Oh, Schuster gone?
Schuster's gone. So I think
what happened?
I don't know all of it.
Oh, my God.
But I think, I mean, certainly if you're just asking, like, you can watch I-24 for some debates, but I mean, if you're asking generically about their actual reporting, I mean, it's certainly quite skewed, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Calling from a 408 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? We got 30 seconds. We got to be quick.
Sam, hi. This is Spook from California.
Hey, what's on your mind? Go.
I was on the David Pakman's Collins show, and he mentioned that the bulk of the Democratic vote, the most stable one, are centrist left. And there's been a lot of data about demographics of votes. And I just, there's a lot of information out there. What do you think is the habits of progressive voters? Because there's so much, CNN has said that the energy and enthusiasm is with progressive right now. And is that going to turn into more voter turnout? And I'm just wondering, what is the sort of habits and voter data about progressive voters?
It's a good question. We're going to have some pollsters on in September who can answer that question better. But my understanding is that what is motivating people the most is not necessarily an ideology one way or another. It is being partisan. And I mean, that's what the way that I think is that people like to frame this is you hear the centrist saying well, people want to vote against Trump, but if we have a candidate that's too far left, then they're not going to do it. But I just don't think that most voters make their decisions that way. I think most voters make their decisions if they don't like Trump, they want to hear someone who's going to go at Trump the hardest. And I think, certainly policies to a certain extent filter in there. But I think it's, people look at how much they trust somebody. I think there's just a lot more to it than just breaking it down within the left or the right itself on policy and ideology. But we'll talk to a pollster about that. Calling from a 716 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? You got 30 seconds.
Hi, Sam. This is Dan from New York.
Go, Dan.
I am calling to agree with you that I don't think that people will be frightened away from the Democrats if we run a Democrat that is far lefter than any have been recently. I do agree that the Democrats are allied with the Republicans and only ashamed that Trump is bearing their black soul. I think we could save ourselves by bringing Al Franken back and having him rip on Trump.
Well, who knows? Appreciate the call.
Maybe find someone who's not a sex creep.
You might want to.
We can do it.
Calling from us. I can't tell. 786 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yo, this is Michael Brooks from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, hello, Michael Brooks. What's on your mind?
Yo, so I'm just going to use this time to say a lot, all right? Yeah. One, my congresswoman is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I don't know how that bitch got elected. She clearly stole the election. It's the clearest case of election fraud against my boy, Tim Canova. What else? Florida's a terrible state. All Republican. It's terrible out here. Besides that, we need to focus on the issues. Climate change, Israel-Palestine, Western Sahara, and Lula Libre, of course.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the call.
Sounded like a good call from what I caught of it.
It's a very strange bit there.
Call from a different you in a different dimension.
720, are you on? This phone system a little bit buggy. Calling from a 949 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Michael from Bushwick.
Michael from Bushwick.
I have
30 seconds. Quick, go.
Okay, great. First of all, I think that Bernie should get behind basically medical debt cancellation, both on moral grounds, because we all agree that healthcare is a human right.
Yep.
But also when you think about how they can attract seniors to this campaign,
yep.
They tend to be a population class that has accumulated a lot of medical debt. And then if I still have some time left, I have one really quick plug, and that's for a foreign policy blog called Fellow Travelers. It's an all-volunteer effort, but we're trying to basically imagine alternatives to our neoliberal world order.
URL?
It's fellowtravelersblog.com.
Okay, great. Appreciate the call. That medical debt, I think I've heard whispers that there's talk about it, but who knows? Calling from a 651 area code. You got 30 seconds. Go.
Oh my God, that's me. Okay, Minnesota State. Oh wait, Billy from Minnesota. The Minnesota State Fair is happening tomorrow, and basically every politician in the Midwest is going to be there, as well as the presidential candidates. So everyone that wants to get involved and make sure that they say Medicare for all is their plan, then they need to go out there and say it in person. Also, Mom, Dan, happy anniversary. Love you both.
Mom, Dan, happy anniversary. Appreciate the call.
Tell Dan I say hi to.
Calling from a 347 area code. Go. You got 30 seconds. Oh, my God.
Hi, this is John from San Francisco. I had a question. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I had a question about what your thoughts are on op-eds like in the New York Times and Washington Post. If we could get more progressive op-eds, and if you think that would be a sort of a valuable thing to do.
It's a valuable thing to do. It's a very tough thing to do, but it definitely has value. Calling from a 270 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Folks, I'm going to tell you right now, if you have not been on...
It's Jeremy from Kentucky.
Jeremy from Kentucky, hold on one second. If you have not been on for an hour on the phone, then hang up now because we're not going to get to you. I still got about 5 or 6 more people who've been on the phone for over an hour. Go ahead, Jeremy, go. 30 seconds.
Hey, this is a little bit of a confrontation. I've noticed on your show a few times recently, y'all have called Cornel West the most important public intellectual in America, and I'm wondering if you guys are going to do anything to distance yourselves from that when he invariably endorses some wackadoo third-party candidate when Bernie Sanders doesn't get the nomination.
No, wait a second. No. I mean, I certainly, I mean, like, look, I think he's a very important public intellectual.
Yeah, for sure.
And yes, if he endorses a third-party candidate, I'm going to say that's a stupid thing to do.
I'm going to disagree, and I'm also going to say that Cornel West has certainly earned a right more than any of us speaking here to make mistakes, and has contributed more than any of us speaking here. And the role he's playing now is absolutely unparalleled, and I'm not going to be a petty pedant about that. Man. He made a mistake, in my opinion. That's we're not talking about Jimmy Dore. We're not talking about somebody like that. Sorry.
He's not a pundit. He does work.
I don't know if there's a bigger mistake you can make as a public person in 2016 than endorsing Jill fucking Stein.
Endorsing Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I mean,
I appreciate the call. I appreciate the call. I mean, I personally think that you're right. That endorsing Jill Stein in 2016 is a huge mistake. People go out and they vote, but if I think you're doing that from regardless of your intellect, I think you're doing it from a place that I don't think it's justifiable. I really don't. I agree with it.
Everyone thought Hillary was going to win, and I think Jill Stein was an umbrella or an excuse or whatever, or platform for general critique of the president that everybody thought was coming.
Yeah, Eddie Glaude did the same
Cornel
thing.
West did it. I did it. I used it as a news peg many times to deliver my criticisms of Hillary.
Eddie Glaude, in his book, and we had a big fight about this when he came on, was saying that people should stay out of the election, and I think he backed off that at one point.
That's why I just say it's something to disagree with, but it's not something that would make me feel the pressure to distance ourselves from.
Well, I don't know what it means, distance. I mean,
absurd.
I don't know what it means, distance. I mean, it's not like he's hanging out here and
he's coming on my Twitch
work
stream.
that he is doing in the present tense is absolutely more important and more effective than anybody could see, and there's a long history there. And I will say, I will stack up my criticism of Jill Stein with anybody, right?
I will say I am proud of the DSA and all my comrades for voting on the correct thing, which is that if Bernie Sanders doesn't win the primary, we're not going to endorse anyone.
Well, a lack of endorsement is a very different thing than telling people to go out and vote for someone who's not going to win and who could possibly usher in Donald Trump.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's why I'm saying it's the better thing to do.
I think that is a better thing to do. Calling from a 774 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 30 seconds.
Hey, Sam, this is Corey calling from Worcester.
Nice. 35 seconds. Go.
Yes. So I think that Anthony Fantana will be very proud of your segment yesterday on the veganism.
Oh.
But I just wanted to bring up a quick thing that I don't think anybody's really talking about with the whole gun control debate. I work in pharmaceuticals, and I think that, there's been a number of articles published that connect SSRIs and antidepressants and gun shootings, going back to Columbine. Many of them were either coming off of SSRIs, which can cause, these feelings of apathy and all these other horrible side effects. And I mean, I don't know how we can make the pharmaceutical industry answer to this other than publishing many more studies and having, the FDA actually push some kind of legislation about it. But I think it's an interesting topic that no one's really touched on.
I'll look into it. I appreciate the call, Corey. I mean, I will say this, that there are times where I have been just appalled at the way that doctors, psychiatrists have told people to go off of drugs without any awareness of the implications of it. I mean, I have a friend who's a drug counselor. Stories of doctors not understanding the physical implications of getting off of Ativan, even small amounts. Obviously, the opioid crisis. Not necessarily psychiatrists are doing that, but there is a little bit. It's a little bit too easy. The doctors just aren't terribly excited about titrating.
Or on to them. I've had a doctor try to prescribe me an antidepressant because I've got certain symptoms of chronic fatigue.
I mean, I don't think, antidepressants, I think, are wonderful things that help a lot of people. But I think there needs to be a little bit more, I don't know how to incentivize to have psychiatrists, take these things a little bit more seriously at times. Calling from a 415 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Matt Stoneman, San Francisco, California.
Go, you got 30.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring it back to the basics based off of the call yesterday that you guys got, where the woman just kind of asked how each of you was radicalized, and I actually wanted to get Michael's take on that. But secondly, too, just for the uninitiated, what are some good resources like news resources and books and otherwise, just because I'm trying to apprise myself.
Go look in our archives. I mean, we've had every book that at least that has come out in the past 10 years that we think is worthy of you reading. We've interviewed the authors.
There's also good TMBS Goodreads that people put together, and there's an MR Goodreads.
Yeah.
So those are good places to start.
I guess I just kind of wanted to personalize it to you guys. What's a foundational one or two books?
Okay. Tough question for right now, but appreciate the call.
Capital.
People's History of the Third, the Darker Nations, People's History of the Third World by Vijay Prashad, and Growing Up Without Money.
I'm trying to think of one. Howard Zinn's maybe People's History was an early one for me.
I read Manufacturing Consent.
Yeah, a lot of Chomsky.
If we're talking about early ones, definitely The Dispossessed by Ursula Le Guin.
608, are you on the phone? 608?
Yes, this is Elvis. Elvis from Wisconsin. I don't have time for what I really wanted to discuss, so I just got a couple of comments. Sean Spicer, I heard his dance partner was going to be the bush in front of the White House lawn.
Nice.
A couple of questions. Who is dumber, Ben Carson or Rick Perry as a cabinet member? And then I was getting into this argument with somebody about the cost of Trump and Obama, their travel, and they brought up this $2 billion to go to India. Is that true?
I don't know. But I suppose it's Googleable. I appreciate the call. And I don't know about Carson or Perry. I would say probably Perry.
Yeah, Carson's a brain surgeon.
Oh,
yeah, at least he has those. 773 area code.
Doesn't have the savant.
Who's
part.
this?
Shut up.
773. Who's this?
Hi, this is Gus from Chicago's North Side.
Okay, quick. You got 30 seconds. People, stop calling in.
Basically, I wanted to rant about last Friday's Bill Maher because it shows what a hypocrite he is because he complained about his buddy Neil deGrasse Tyson having his speech censored, yet the anti-BDS bill can fire you if you disagree with Israel. And actually, yes, Israeli Arab crisis is just like South African apartheid. Lula Libre and Donald Guaido.
Yeah.
By the way,
good call from Gus right there.
The source for that expensive India trip for Obama was Michelle Bachmann, and she never backed it up.
Yeah, okay, bullshit.
Let's lay down $1 billion for this trip.
Area code 310. Folks, stop calling in. We're not going to take those calls.
I can't take all your calls.
Call them from 310. Go ahead.
This is Quinn from El Segundo, California. What is the common thread? What is the common thread of right-wing authoritarian nationalists rising to power around the world? I hear globalization offered as a answer a lot, and it seems like a bad answer because the effects are so different.
That's a good question.
Globalization is
Appreciate the
actually
call.
a good
It's a
answer
tough one
because
for the
the
lightning
different
round.
effects can still be problematic in a variety of different ways. I have to do this. Watch the conversation I did with Celso Amorim, former Brazilian foreign minister, on globalization in the far right.
Yeah, it's a rise or an intensification of racism, certainly, that's always existed, and at the same time a collapse of the neoliberal center or anything that would provide an opposition to that.
I mean, it's certainly, I can tell you that in terms of like close proximity, the globalization in the financial systems around the world, brought about basically a major economic disruption around the globe that we are still feeling the impact of.
Speaking of book recommendations, Ira Katznelson's Fear Itself talks about the 1930s and how following the Great Depression, basically, you get a rise of authoritarian fascism.
I mean, people don't like to be immiserated.
Yeah, austerity is a huge factor.
Calling from a 703 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Dan Crenshaw.
Dan,
from Texas.
Dan Crenshaw. Welcome to the program. But go. You got 30.
You guys missed me on Joe Rogan last night. I haven't heard you speak about it. You guys give fucking 30 minutes to Bernie Sanders every day.
Take it easy. Take it easy. Don't swear.
Sorry, I forgot. Censorship. I was just calling to see if you guys, how you guys like the home runs I was hitting up the park when Bernie Sanders was having trouble hitting those slow pitch softballs Joe Rogan was throwing at him. I was hitting grand slams.
All right, I'll check it out. Appreciate
All right,
the call.
I'll take the eye patch off and go have a shot.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Calling from a 216 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, yes, this is Janet. On your show for so long, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, your phone's breaking up.
Hello?
Your phone's breaking up.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. It's a real drag. I'm sorry. You got to call back. Apologize. I just can't hear you. Calling from a 4040 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello? You got 30 seconds. Go.
Hello, my name's Keishan from Cleveland.
Yep.
Hey, hi, sorry. A little nervous. I love the show, guys. Free Lula, Kashmir, and Israel-Palestine, most important conflicts on earth right now.
Yep.
Just wanted a quick comment on the wonderkind of the IDW, and everyone's favorite jackass, Ben Shapiro. He is trying to do the thing he always does with whenever he sees anti-Semitism manifest on the right, he's just bringing up this thing where it's like, he's creating a distinction between ethnic Jews and religious Jews.
Right.
And I want to ask you, Sam, if that does that hold water at all? Does that make sense? Like, can you do that? Was anti-Semitism something that was only targeted towards religious Jews and not ethnic Jews? And again, I'm sorry for,
I appreciate the call.
How nervous I sound.
No, I appreciate the call.
Yep,
Good question. That is absolute, total horse crap. I don't know how you define anti-Semitism, if it doesn't include the fact that when they put people in the gas chambers, they did not ask how many times a day do you pray. They didn't ask if you laid tefillin. They didn't ask if you had a mezuzah on your door. They didn't ask. In fact, neo-Nazis have more of a problem with cultural Jews, they say, because their value system is more divergent. But when they put you in the gas chambers, they never asked that. They asked, who was your mother? Who was your father? Who was your grandmother? Who was your grandfather? Who were their parents? That's the only question they asked. Anti-Semites do not make that distinction, except for to the extent that they do, and they've articulated it, it is the absolute opposite of what Ben Shapiro is talking about. Ben Shapiro is a disgusting human being. He's a disgusting human being. And frankly, I find that type of fundamentalism of every stripe, But particularly his, just because I'm that close to it, I find it disgusting. It's disgusting. People talk about religion being the root of so many problems in the world. It's not religion. It's fundamentalism. Calling from a 951 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 951, going once. 951, going twice. Going. Hello? Oh, you there? Nope, I think you're gone. Sorry. Calling from a 303 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Matt. I'm calling from Colorado.
30 seconds, Matt. Go.
Okay, Hickenlooper dropping out of the presidential race is a very good thing, but running for Senate in Colorado is not a good thing. Colorado already has two strong contenders in the Democratic primaries here, and either one of them could easily take Cory Gardner's seat, and both are running on things like healthcare and climate crisis. So given the opportunity, I'd rather people promote the number one guy in the polls, Andrew Romanoff, for Senate against Gardner, who, by the way, is getting tons of money from the Koch brothers and direct support from McConnell.
All right, Romanoff
We're key
it
to
is.
flipping the Senate, and it's all for nothing if Hickenlooper wins. So
Right.
thanks.
Appreciate the
that's
call.
Andrew Romanoff. That's very important, and this is another Chuck Schumer special.
Garbage. Calling from a 266 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 30 seconds.
Hello?
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 Hello, 266. You got 30 seconds. Go. Okay.
Hello?
Sorry. Don't know what happened. Calling from a 325 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? You got 30 seconds. Go.
Hello, this is Martin from Clyde, Texas.
Martin, what's on your mind?
I wanted to say, for one thing, what about the idea that universal health care will make it so that businesses can hire people on full time because they don't have to worry about paying for their insurance any longer? And also, I would like to say Bernie and Elizabeth Warren need to say now that instead of one of them dropping out, that whoever ends up winning the nomination will take the other as their vice president.
Possible. I appreciate the call. I can tell you that employers will have to pay taxes, I would imagine, on a per employee basis, probably not as high as insurance costs as they stand, I think. I also think there's got to be a person of color on the ticket, frankly. I really do. I mean, both from a perspective of just like what we need to have in terms of representing people in this country, and also just from a sheerly electoral perspective. I really think that's important, particularly coming out of this era of Donald Trump. Calling from a 301 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, it's Andrew from D.C.
Andrew from D.C., what's on your mind? You got 30 seconds. Go.
Yeah, so I was having a conversation with a friend. He's actually, he works for tons of low experience in the RNC, actually, because I wanted his take on Bernie in the Democratic primary since he doesn't really have a dog in the fight. And he told me something kind of interesting, how they kind of rank things based on engagement that will lead to the vote. And he said the bottom thing is putting in an email. He's like, that just doesn't matter because anybody will do it. The second worst thing is a max contribution because you're probably playing both sides. The third thing is a small donation, something that Bernie's crushing. And the best thing that would lead to votes is volunteer for the campaign.
Right.
So my question is, why is money the gold standard of strength of the campaign and not support and, just people volunteering their time, et cetera?
Because you to measure money is much easier. You got to file. And so from a reporter's perspective, you can measure money easier and make an assessment easier. And that is what dictates what is the gold standard. And I'll tell you,
so it's not like
I'll tell you that dynamic exists in everything. Whatever the gatekeepers can measure the best is imposed as the best standard.
Isn't it easy to just say we have X amount of volunteers?
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Oh, got it.
Appreciate the call. Appreciate the call. Call from a 610 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 30 seconds. Go.
Is this me?
Yep. Go. 30 seconds.
Hey, this is D from New York. I just wanted to say a couple things. One, I hope that Warren supporters realize that the favorable media coverage is going to shift as soon as she picks up in the polls and is a threat, more of a threat to Biden. And also, I wanted to see if you guys would have Tim Wise on because he had a viral thread about how Democrats need to not normalize Trump and focus more explicitly on his racism rather than policies.
All right, appreciate the call. Well, I've had Tim Wise on a while back. Calling from a 228 area code. Who's this? Where are we calling from?
Hi, this is Welcome Matheson from Biloxi, Mississippi. And I just wanted to tell you that my nephew, my little 6-year-old nephew, just started the first grade. And the first political question he had for me was, why is the president orange? And I know that, I mean, I've thought about it, but I never really thought about why is he allowed to be orange? Because every job I've ever had, and I'm assuming you guys too, if I showed up caked in orange, my boss would say, wash that shit off your face and get back to work. So that's my question.
I do not have an answer for you, but your son sounds very astute.
I think you just answered it yourself. He's never worked a day in his life.
We have a chance to fire him. A year from now. 661. Who's this? Where are you calling from? We got 4 more callers on the line. 5 more callers. 661. Got 30 seconds. Go. 661 going once. Twice. Good day. Calling from an 860 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 860. 860. Good day. Calling from a 607 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name's Austin from Boston. Thanks for having me on the show.
Austin from Boston. You got 30 seconds. Go.
Yeah, I'm a technocratic libertarian, and I wanted to list a few points here. Like, you know, I'm actually against tariffs. I'm not a cuck for Donald Trump in the Tea Party. You know, I like tax cuts for the payroll, not for the rich. You know, single-payer health care is a libertarian policy because it makes people more free and costs less money for everybody. You know, I'm anti-ICE, anti-immigration because I appreciate freedom. And Rand Paul sucks because he lied to every one of his constituents and followers because he's not a libertarian. He does not fight for people's liberty. He's also just pick up for the GOP. So I'll probably be voting Democrat in the next presidential election, even though I don't really agree with either party very much. But I'd like your position on gun control because, you know, the NRA and Ronald Reagan were anti-gun when the Black Panthers were arming themselves in California. And I wondered if you would appreciate the policy where a technocratic libertarian policy where gun control laws would be passed if America wasn't the first per capita in the world for jail population.
I appreciate the call. I mean, the history of gun control, I agree with you. That's why it was done. We had a very different society, I think, back then, and the number of guns, and it wasn't, it hadn't kicked into being such an incredibly lucrative business. I mean, guns are bad for society, and the interpretation of the Second Amendment is a relatively new phenomena, 10 years old at this point, that it exists for everyone. And so I would like to see gun control. How that goes about, whether it's like you need to have classes of license in terms of how many guns you can own and what kind of guns, and you need to establish, you know, some purposes. I think that could be a way to go. I think also banning wholesale certain classes of guns is obvious. We do that when it comes to other arms, right? I mean, it doesn't say guns in the Constitution. It says right to bear arms. So why can't we go around with bazookas?
Tanks.
Why can't I have my own fighter jet? I mean, you know, there's, we have.
I got a fuel efficient fighter jet.
We do have arms control
see that.
In this country. So,
you can't use the fighter jet, Mila. No.
I mean, that Black Panthers example is interesting because yes, they did patrol their neighborhoods with guns. They showed off guns, and the government murdered a lot of them. And that's a terrible thing to think about, but also to carry forward in our movements in the future. Most of the people who die from gun violence now are poor people and people of color. So I think that deserves some consideration.
And people who kill themselves,
and
frankly.
Absolutely.
By far.
And I would support gun control measures that put the onus on the corporations and the profiteers. I would not support gun control measures that beef up the carceral state and the surveillance state, because that's always going to be used against the most marginalized
I agree.
people.
Root of stop and frisk is gun control.
Calling 737 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 3 more callers. 737, going once, going twice, gone. Calling from an 813 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Tony from Santham.
Tony, what's on your mind? You got 30 seconds. Go.
I wanted to talk about the Trump 2020 campaign. From what I can tell, all of the advertising for it is exclusively saying Trump 2020, leaving Pence's name out. Is that common when running for re-election, or could Pence not be on the VP because Trump and Pence seem like they hate each other? Free Lula, Leftist best. Thank you so much.
Free Lula.
I mean, I find it hard to believe that they would bump him off the ticket. I find that really hard to believe. All right. Final call of the day. Calling from a 626 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Spaceman Spliff from Colorado.
Okay, you got 30 seconds.
All right, I wanted to get your take on public shaming as a tactic for the left, specifically perhaps a list of people like Officer Pantaleo or an ICE guard caught on tape abusing someone in their custody, etc., for things that people care about, and so that you could find out, like, maybe I'm really against one of these kinds of things, and there's a list of people that I'd like to shame if I ever see them publicly.
I have mixed feelings about it. I don't like to institutionalize something like that because you don't know how that could be used. But I think people should go around and be aware of what they don't like. And
when it comes to public figures, definitely.
Yes. We start getting into, like, and certainly, when you have a guy like Pantaleo, like, something like that should be bureaucratic insofar as, like, he should get fired.
Oh, well, no.
And
in his case, he should be in jail.
Right.
I'm not.
I
meant specifically the whole shaming thing. No. In some of these people's cases, and I think the guy who ran his truck through the ICE people as well.
I think there should
I
be,
think, like,
you
part,
send them
like,
to jail.
You want to say, hey, F you to somebody. Yeah, but that shouldn't be a website.
Right. I think that, people can have their own expression to do that. All right. Appreciate the calls. That was a good experiment there with that 30-second thing. We should do that. We're just going to limit it.
And then just cut it down by about 30 minutes.
Yep. And we're going to do 4 IMs, and then we're out of here. Doe. Biden's fundraising has been in the cellar since the first great day. Bernie, number 1, Warren closing in, then Harris. Secret identity politics. Biden doesn't have the stamina. Private insurance doesn't want to pay that either. Pejorative John, I tried shooting up liquid IV. I think I did it wrong. Hangover went away, but I definitely didn't get high. And the final IM of the day. Just Twitch, no more YouTube. YouTube Premium has been a lifesaver. No, we'll be on both. Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road some